This is the final week to grab your chance. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys tonight.
We have had to call the police. He has received death threats.
A man is shot dead for burning the Quran. It's criticising Islam, now a death sentence in Europe and over in America.
Today I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
Donald Trump will send illegals to Guantanamo, but over here...
The new United Kingdom government will never withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights.
Our Attorney General, who you never voted for, has just pledged lifelong allegiance to the ECHR. How out of touch is Britain? Plus...
Exciting day for the family at Mini Pride. Family fun for everyone.
3-year-olds are now being taken to a gay pride event. Is that acceptable? And...
72 Washington Star, 1 star, 32017. Did you see that? 472.
What on earth went on with that plane and helicopter crash in the States? Trump seems to think there might be a whiff of DEI about it.
To have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, but we'll restore faith in American air travel.
But closer to home, I reveal shocking footage of yet another broad daylight knife attack. Plus... Reform surge ahead in the polls, which is hardly a surprise when you see the state of the Labour Chancellor.
Why did you say it was a decade?
Well, I think you're taking... it's one...
Well, tonight is former Tory MP Anna Firth, Lord Sean Bailey and ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Oh, and find out why we should be worried about that happening there. Asteroid. Well, apparently it could all be game over soon. Get ready, Britain, here we go. Is it a death sentence to criticise Islam in Britain? Next.
Patrick, thank you and good evening. The top stories: Channel migrants who put lives at risk will face up to 5 years in jail under a new border security bill. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has outlined plans to make endangering another life during a sea crossing to the UK a new offence. She also announced that people selling and handling boat parts suspected of being used in migrant channel crossings could face up to 14 years in prison under new laws trying to crack down on people smugglers. So far this year, more than 1,000 migrants have crossed the English Channel. GB News' political editor Christopher Hope sat down with the Home Secretary.
Can't just keep doing any more of the gimmicks. It's got to be this really serious law enforcement, and we've got to treat the border security in the same way that we treat issues of security against terror threats, and that's why we're introducing counter-terror style powers to give law enforcement much stronger powers to act early in the same way that they could around terrorism cases, because that's a sign of really the seriousness of this. If we are going to strengthen border security and prevent lives being lost, we have to have stronger law enforcement powers to go after the dangerous gangs.
In other news, President Donald Trump says the cause of last night's Washington, D.C. crash between a plane and a military helicopter is still being investigated, and he says our hearts are shattered. Authorities in Washington say they don't expect to find any survivors after the collision. More than 300 emergency responders are still searching for survivors. 64 people, including crew, were on that American Airlines flight, and 3 soldiers were on the Black Hawk helicopter. At least 28 bodies have already been recovered. A helicopter was on a training flight when the crash happened just before 9 p.m. local time.
Our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now and in the days to come. We'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come. We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers.
And finally, retail crime is now at an all-time high, with more than 2,000 incidents reported a day. Last year, more than 70 incidents alone included use of a weapon, with double reported in the previous year. Thefts have reached 20 million incidents per year, costing retailers £2.2 billion annually. Those are the headlines for now. It's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening. It seems like you get a death sentence in the Western world if you dare to criticise aspects of the Islamic faith. In Sweden, this man, who admittedly took things to the absolute extreme in a bid to make his feelings known, regularly burnt copies of the Quran. 'Last night, he was shot dead in his apartment. Now, I don't condone setting fire to copies of the Quran, and I absolutely see how that could cause anger. But just think about this. If somebody set fire to a copy of the Bible or the Torah, would they be shot dead in their own home? I suspect not. In France, teacher Samuel Paty was falsely accused of showing obscene pictures of the Prophet Muhammad to school children. That was a lie. A girl who wasn't even in his class at the time made it up. He was beheaded in the street by an Islamist. Before that, we had Charlie Hebdo, didn't we? They ran a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad on their front cover. Then this happened. Twelve people were killed because of that front cover. We all know about the Batley Grammar School incident where a teacher remains in police hiding with his family after allegedly showing a picture of the Prophet to some kids, and people gathered outside the school gate calling for his blood. There was a mob outside that school for days.
The incident from Monday, 22nd of March, must also be investigated from a criminal perspective. Yes. given that it was a clear attempt to stir up religious hatred. We also use this opportunity to call upon the entire British Muslim community to review the materials being taught in their children's schools.
Now, I do wonder if a teacher had said something that Jewish or Christian students found offensive, or made a joke about one of the Hindu gods, whether they'd have received death threats and been forced into hiding for the rest of their lives. And then there was the autistic child who accidentally scuffed a copy of the Quran at school. He also received death threats, and his mum had to go to the local Islamic centre and beg for forgiveness.
I've had to call the police. He has received death threats. He has received threats that he will be beaten up if he goes back to school. He's absolutely petrified. But I don't want anybody to be prosecuted.
Yet again, I'll ask, if a copy of the Bible had been scuffed, would we have seen the parents of a hypothetical Muslim child forced into a church to beg for their child's life? I doubt it. It does appear to be a potential death sentence if you do something, even accidentally, that offends certain elements of the Muslim community. I wonder whether that's why this is allowed. Or even why this is allowed. But this is not allowed. A Christian woman praying silently in her own head outside an abortion clinic.
That's what it's doing. Is you standing to be part of the protest?
No. I'm not protesting.
Are you praying?
I might be praying in my head.
So I'll ask you once more, will you voluntarily come with us now to the police station for me to ask you some questions about today and other days where there are allegations that you've broken public space in particular?
If I've got a choice, then no.
I wonder if that fear of being put on some kind of hit list is why police seem to bend over backwards to please some aspects of the Muslim community.
Salam alaikum. There is one tier of policing that implies to all of us, and that means that we police without fear or favour. Shukran.
Would police ever ask for permission from the elders to address a Christian audience, as indeed another police officer did at that time as well? Again, I doubt it. And if a group of Jewish people attacked a police station, or even, let's just say, a group of football fans, would you not expect the police to come out and deal with them with force? Well, over to Rochdale now.
We saw you. We know you're in there. Come out, explain yourself. Why has only one officer been suspended? What about the rest of them?
I don't think the particular community in that clip got in much trouble. Why not? Look, I don't think anyone should go out and set fire to a copy of the Quran, or needlessly offend Muslims or be Islamophobic. But what I am saying is there appears to be only one religion in Europe where you might be shot, stabbed or beheaded if you cause offence to some of its followers. Let's get thoughts from my panel this evening. We've got former Tory MP Anna Firth, we've got Lord Bailey, and we have also got ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Anna, I'll start with you on this. Do you think that basically we now have a situation, possibly have had for some while, where if you do offend aspects of the Islamic community, it's a death sentence?
Well, I obviously do think that, because Sir David Amess, who I succeeded, he was actually butchered by an Islamic extremist, not because he offended the Islamic religion, because of how he voted against Syria. And the extremist who murdered him said that he had listened to the rantings of Abu Muhammad al-Nani, the Syrian ISIS leader, who had made speech after speech. And that was the first time that followers of Islam were actually instructed in his first speech to go and kill non-Muslims in non-Muslim countries. So, yes, we absolutely do have a problem. And we've discussed many times the Prevent programme and Shawcross's review, which has pointed out that 67% of terror incidents from 2018 to today were due to Islamic extremism, and it occupies 3/4 of MI5's workload. So, yes, of course, we've got an issue, and we need to... It's integration. We have got to deal with this.
Oh, again, I will stress, I have, believe it or not, everybody, I have absolutely no desire whatsoever to go out and set fire to a copy of the Quran. That man did, OK? And I can understand why that's inflammatory. However, he did get shot to death for it. And it does appear as though that is a kind of reaction that seems to be happening quite a bit, whether you're beheaded or whatever, if you offend Islam. What do you make of that, Sean?
Look, I'm a card-carrying Christian, so the idea of burning the Bible to me is very offensive. But what needs to be looked at here is what reaction does it cause and what is that community asked to do in response and what did the police do in response? One of the things that's beginning to generate community tension is the idea that certain people get dealt with in different ways. That's where the authorities have to step up and make sure that everybody's dealt with the same. What's happened is Sweden, of course, is illegal. It was illegal before, and it will remain illegal, but now it's how it's dealt with. But here in this country, the authorities have to really be able to put their hand on their heart and say, actually, we don't deal with people differently because they're from a different religion. Because when you looked at the marches we had in London, that caused great consternation in many other communities because it looked like there wasn't a fair hand being... And that's a question we need to answer here.
Do you think there's an aspect of fear that grips our political institutions, our police force, maybe our education system as well, Matthew, when it comes to, you know, basically in this country you can say or do what you like when it comes to other religions, but if you criticise Islam, it is a death sentence?
Well, I think that has been historically. I think that the left didn't cover itself in glory in the late 80s with the Satanics versus affair when Salman Rushdie's book was being burned on the streets of Bradford, and sort of left Liberal apologists for that at the time were pretty disgraceful. I think there have obviously been isolated examples of that since, but I think that I think actually partly because of things we talked about in this sofa just last week about the grooming gangs, etc. I think that people have now said that we must be honest about what's happening in communities, whatever the community is, and we shouldn't pander to any community, but while showing respect for all communities.
The shame is it took so long and we've had so many terrible incidences to get to this point. And I really want to reflect on the police's behaviour and politicians' behaviour. Certain politicians behave that way because they don't want to lose the vote. Other politicians because they don't want to create community tensions. We had a police officer in London who was in a Chris Cubber case, who was investigated in a very particular way, in an extraordinary way, because it might cause community tension. That is not the way to deal with something. We have a legal system and we need to follow those rules.
Absolutely.
Do you think you should be able to burn a copy of the Quran? Do you think it's something that should be allowed to happen, or is it a crime? Should it be a crime? What do you think?
Look, I believe in freedom of expression. You know, it's a basic human right. We live by that in this country. I would not burn a copy of the Quran. But if someone were to burn a copy... I'm a Christian as well, but if someone were to burn a copy of the Bible, I would consider that to be deeply disrespectful, extremely rude. I would not want anyone... But I would not expect... It's not even... That wouldn't even be an offence, in my opinion.
Here's the thing. That wouldn't cross most Muslim... The vast majority of Muslim people wouldn't jump out of the house and come and murder you or even come and shout at you over it. But some would, and more than in most communities. The important thing here, though, even as a card-carrying Christian, I don't believe it should be illegal to burn a Quran, a Bible or a Torah or a humanist book for that matter, because it would lead to a blasphemy law. And that would put us in a far bigger problem.
We don't have blasphemy laws in this country, and I think that's for a reason. But we're missing the point here. There's no other religion that consistently leads to these violent attacks.
Is that fair, Matthew?
Well, I think clearly partly because of geopolitical issues which have involved the Middle East and Muslim areas of the world more than others. I think we have seen particular sort of tensions and anger within the Muslim community, frankly, over a period that stretches back to the Iraq War 20 odd years ago. I'd say what I do think, just watching the footage that we saw earlier, is whoever the community leaders are, I hate that phrase, community leaders. And what you see is not the police talking to ordinary Muslims, but sort of doing a little video to keep people who are on their community relations committee happy, and I don't like that at all. And we shouldn't be having that. The police need to just step back and police us all, not community leaders.
There are no community leaders. They're always
self-appointed.
Absolutely, and they're always the most militant, and that's the problem. If you pander to the militant, they become more militant, not less.
The thing is, it's not just community leaders. What about Abu Hamza? What about Amjan Chowdhury? You know, the hate clerics that we have had. Unfortunately, we've got rid of them. Why have they all come from this religion?
The thing is, I'll put this to you, Matthew, I think it's becoming increasingly obvious these days when you see stories like that, and you just do a compare and contrast, don't you? The autistic child who scuffed a copy of the Quran at school, and his mum is, you know, there in the local Islamic centre, basically saying, look, he's had death threats, please don't let any harm coming to him. But I don't want anyone prosecuted for anything they might have said in the meantime. And you just have to flip that on its head. If he'd gone into school and done something, ripped a page out of the Bible, or there's no way in a million years that ends up in a church.
I think it's the walking on it's the walking on eggshells, isn't it? And I don't think any good comes of walking on eggshells or talking to community leaders. They're rather in the same bracket. And I think that people need to relax. They need to realise that if people are from a particular, if they're angry about something and what they're saying is out of order, just because they're from one community, they shouldn't be excused.
I think it's what we do about it is actually the police and politicians and the press grow a pair and take people on. Because what happens is, again, I go back to one point, if you keep appeasing people, I mean, we should learn this with the whole Second World War situation. You keep appeasing people, they keep pushing. You give them an inch, they take a mile, and we are in that situation. And police officers now, senior police officers, not a beat officer, right? Could they really put their hand on their heart and say, well, we dealt with that the same, even though it was a particular religion?
They're terrified.
Yeah, and
they're terrified of stuff like.
And then they end up doing silly things, so they're walking on eggshells.
Perfect example, Patrick. You mentioned it in your opening. The Batley Grammar School. Now, imagine if a teacher had put a cartoon of Jesus Christ. We've had those sorts of
Life of Brian, anyone?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw that. I watched that in school.
There you go.
I watched the Life of Brian in school.
Now, I remember Life of Brian and I remember my mother not being at all happy about me seeing that because at that stage it was considered to be quite offensive. Yeah. It was pushing the envelope.
Still is.
But we accept that because we're a tolerant country. We should have the same rules for everybody. If you put a card, that teacher should not have been hounded out of that school. He should not have been having to be in hiding.
Technically, we do. This is the point. Technically, we do have the same rules for everybody. Let's be clear about that. What we don't have is the same culture when we deal with people around. We have a culture...
Because of nervousness.
Yeah. And that's what needs to go. Yes. Like, even if you talk about people smuggling, they've made some new rules about boat pieces.
We're talking about that,
yeah, that's not the issue. The issue is enforcing the laws we already have.
All right. Well, look, good. I do quite enjoy, actually, when it's more of a discussion than anything, but we'll have plenty of opportunity to have a catastrophic row. There we go. Anyway, right, I've got loads more coming your way. We have unearthed the fact that there is a Pride event now where 3-year-olds are being taken to, so we're going to have a long discussion about that. But before that, time is running out, and your chance to become our biggest ever giveaway winner, 50 grand in tax-free cash. Don't miss out.
Lines closed.
Right, good luck, everybody. Coming up, I'm going to reveal how many Brits are currently receiving the highest level of benefits. They're getting 7 grand a year on top of basic state handouts at the expense of hard-working, tax-paying citizens. The figures are absolutely astonishing. But first...
Exciting day for the family at Mini Prize. Family fun for everyone.
Well, I'm going to reveal the horrifying details of the latest attempt to indoctrinate kids as young as 3 with woke gender ideology. I'll give you a clue. It often involves drag queens. That's next.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Newly released MI5 files reveal that Queen Elizabeth II was kept in the dark over the treachery of a senior courtier.
Yeah, for almost a decade. This is Sir Anthony Blunt, who played a double life, passing intelligence, the KGB, during World War II as a senior MI5 officer. But, remarkably, he was allowed to keep his position amid fears of a major scandal if the truth came out.
Well, now those files have been released by the National Archives, which includes the Queen's response to finding out a trusted member like Anthony Blunt was really a traitor.
Well, joining us now in the studio is GB News royal correspondent Cameron Walker. Good to see you this morning, Cameron. This is astonishing.
Oh, absolutely. And this wasn't a little spy. This was Anthony Blunt was a full-blown spy. He passed to the Soviets the D-Day deception plans during the Second World War. He was working for MI5, but a double agent for the KGB as well.
The wrong plans.
He passed on the plans.
The wrong ones.
The wrong one in 1944. Yeah. Exactly. But he then got a job inside Buckingham Palace as one of the Queen's most trusted aides and courtiers, the surveyor of her art, essentially like kind of an art advisor for Her late Majesty. There was always suspicions about Anthony Blunt way back in the early 50s because he was part of this notorious Cambridge spy ring, a group of 5 boys recruited at Cambridge. 2 of these people fled to Moscow in 1951. Anthony stayed behind in London and subsequently got a job inside Buckingham Palace. And it wasn't until 1964 that he confessed to his treachery. The reason he confessed was because he was granted immunity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Coming up, I'm going to reveal the shocking number of Brits that are on the highest level of benefits and how many of them are accepted for those benefits. But first, is it inappropriate to take kids as young as 3 to a mini Pride event? It's time now for the head-to-head. The Story House Theatre in Chester has sparked outrage after advertising mini Pride arts and crafts and storytime sessions from performances by drag queens for children as young as 3 years old.
Exciting day for the family at Mini Pride. From story times... Shh, sorry. To face painting too. It's family fun for everyone.
The sessions are run by the LGBT charity Curious Art, whose Facebook shows very young children making posters displaying messages such as pansexual princess, bisexual body and curious liberation. It's not just Chester, though. Drag queen storytime sessions are being run across the UK. For example, at this family-friendly extravaganza in Colchester in 2023, at which drag queen Anne Namia read a story to children despite allegedly being a recipient of an online fetish appreciation award. So is it appropriate to take kids as young as 3 to a mini gay pride event? Going head-to-head on this are the co-host of the Bombshells podcast, Fleur Mess, and the social commentator, Amy Ansell. Great to have you on the show, both of you. Thank you very much. Fleur, I'll start with you. Do you think it's acceptable to take a 3-year-old to what is essentially a mini gay pride event?
No, I do not think this is appropriate at all. If we think about what pride is, it is being proud of your sexuality and who you're sexually attracted to. 3 to 7-year-olds are not sexually attracted to anyone. And if you look at what the relationship and sex education guidelines are, you shouldn't even be learning about puberty until you're 8 years old. And sex education, you know, in context of science, isn't taught until you're 9 years old. So why are 3 to 7-year-olds outside of a strict school context being taught this by people who, may not even be DBS checked? I searched DBS on the website and I couldn't find any results. And the team is just listed as first names and pronouns, no surnames. So any parent who wants to do their due diligence and find out who is going to be teaching their children about something which is of its nature sexual, can't find any information about that. You know, if I was a parent, I would be really alarmed about this.
Well, quite, I imagine. Amy, why should 3-year-olds be taught about their pronouns and what they want to do with their genitals by a drag queen?
Well, this is not about having sex or really educating children about sex. This is really about inclusion, diversity, being proud of who you are. And think about it. I mean, my son is 8 years old. He has a friend who has 2 gay dads. I need to explain to him why that is. And so it's important for him to recognize that this is out in the world. And I know this mini pride might be geared to children 3 to 7, but ultimately it's all about educating them, opening their eyes to what's going to be in the world. You know, kids watch YouTube, kids watch movies, even in animated films these days. There's gay characters, there's trans characters. It's important for them to see it now so that as they get older, they're not shocked, they don't become homophobic, they don't, you know, they have to understand that this is the world we currently live in. So it's important, the earlier we start, the better. And I hope it rolls out throughout the entire UK and onwards.
Wow, bold line to finish with there. I will just put it to you then, Flo. How would you come back to that argument that actually stuff like this is necessary so that children can learn about the fact that we have a vibrant gay community? Other people might have, in Amy's friend's case, 2 dads or 2 mums. Is it necessary?
Well, as Amy said, she wants to teach her son about that. That's fine, like, teach your son, but I don't see why anyone would want to take their child to a room of strange adults with, as I said, no background checks that you can check to educate your toddler about sex. And I would say that I was never taken to any of these events or watching anime shows with gay characters, and I didn't grow up to be homophobic or you know, like, shocked by anything that I've seen since then. So I just think it's unnecessary. There's also the fact that this venue and also the Curious Arts are taxpayer funded. And so, you know, I'm quite a live and let live person unless it comes to children and my taxes. And if they're getting £250,000 a year of my taxes, well, our taxes, that's where I draw the line.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good point, actually, Flo. So the kicker to this is that we're paying for it as well. Amy, I do put it to you that if we decided to set up a national pride event and advertised it to 3-year-olds, and all the 3-year-olds were there, draped in the Union Jack, being taught to sing Rule Britannia and that song about Hitler and whether or not he only had 1 ball, and we were filmed that and we put it out there, there would be unbelievable hysteria from the left saying you're indoctrinating kids with fascist far-right ideology. But if you bring in the drag queen, or in one case, actually, a library, a man dressed as a monkey with a penis out, that's all fine, isn't it? Do you not think that's weird?
Well, not at all. You're opening their eyes to what they're going to see in the world anyway.
Well,
and
not
what
a naked monkey,
they should be open to, and what they should be seeing at a very early age. It's never too early to start exposing your kids. I'm not saying to anything sexual per se. I'm saying to people that look different or that might have different sexual preferences. Like I said earlier, 2 dads, 2 moms. People live as trans women, trans men these days. You know, they have to know it earlier on.
You don't think there might be more of a chance, Amy, just out of interest? Yeah, great, OK, I'll sit with you there. Just, Amy, do you not think there might be more of a chance that a 3-year-old who's gone from, you know, trying to put the right-shaped toys in the right-shaped hole, all of a sudden, a bloke in lingerie walks in and starts talking to them about pansexuality, you know, whether or not they've been born into the wrong bodies. Do you not think, Amy, that might actually do them a little bit of damage, and that maybe parents who want to do that to their kids might have something wrong with them?
Not at all. I mean, I think that children have to see it. And, you know, maybe some children have homophobic parents. Ultimately, they just need to be exposed to LGBTQ+ world in whatever way is possible.
And is it homophobic not to take your kids to one of these, Amy? Is it homophobic not to take your kids to rainbow penis butt monkey, which was a thing at a library. Is that homophobic, Amy? Am I a homophobe?
Patrick, if you try to protect your children or hide them or not expose them to this, then you're doing them a disservice ultimately. And I really feel sorry for those children that won't be exposed to this as young people, because ultimately they're going to see it, they're going to know about it as they get older, and at least they will know about it soon enough and when they need to. All right, Flev, sorry, final word to you on this. Are you concerned that actually, just kind of get more serious for a second, that actually this is indoctrinating kids, that there's instead of children actually growing into adults who genuinely feel as though they have been born into the wrong body, that they are feeling that way because they've been introduced to this stuff from a very young age? Would that be your view or not?
Yeah, I think it's alarming in that sense. You know, a lot of I've seen lots of stories of parents, particularly in the States, who really push sons into wearing Disney princess dresses and things like that. And it almost seems like it's sometimes mothers that wanted a daughter and they push their son into it. But there's also that I trained as a nursery teacher. I know what child development looks like. I know when they're supposed to be taught about things. I also know that if we suspected children were being exposed to sexual content at a young age, we had to raise awareness of that, like ring alarm bells, because that can make them more susceptible to sexual abuse. And that's something, like, that's just a risk you don't want to take. No. And if you're teaching them about LGBT stuff, that is about who you're sexually attracted to. And they don't need to know about sexual attraction at that age. OK. Well, both of you, thank you very much. It was proper head-to-head, that. Lovely stuff. That's the host of the Bombshells podcast, Fleur Meston, and the social commentator, Amy Ansell. You take care, both of you. Thank you. Coming up tonight... Well, I've got some bombshell new polling that will have the champagne corks popping over at Reform UK HQ. So could Nigel be on his way to Downing Street? Reform UK spokesperson Anne Widdecombe joins me soon. But first, I'll reveal how many Brits are currently receiving the highest level of benefits. That amounts to £7 a year on top of the basic state handout. And, well, you won't believe how many of them are actually getting it the first attempt as well. The figures are staggering, and I've got them next. Stay tuned.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Strong winds across the Canary Islands, also some wet and windy weather for the Balearic Islands, but largely settled elsewhere across eastern parts of the Mediterranean, particularly for Greece and parts of Italy. But as we move our way westwards, this is where we'll find the unsettled weather, so some heavy showers, also some strong winds at times. But further west, largely settled as high pressure dominates, but that is going to bring in some strong winds at times across Madeira and also Tenerife. But that's where we'll see the best of the temperatures, and also largely settled as we head towards the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Outbreaks of rain will move through overnight, heavy at times, accompanied by gusty winds, along with some hill snow. They do ease, though, by morning and then turning drier and brighter from the west as the next ridge of high pressure builds in. We've had a ridge of high pressure in place during the day, and under clear skies it will turn chilly for a time during the evening. With rain moving in from the west, that means there'll be some hill snow for northern England and Scotland. Heavy rain elsewhere and accompanied by gusty winds, an unsettled night to come, and a chilly, grey, in places damp start to Friday. A lot of low cloud is expected first thing, as well as some further outbreaks of rain and drizzle, some heavier rain likely through southern counties of England into London and the southeast. That is moving through, though. Wales and the southwest by 7 a.m. starting to turn dry and brighter. Best of the sunshine through Northern Ireland, parts of western Scotland as well, although much of the rest of Scotland staying relatively gloomy with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. But the hill snow that we're expecting overnight, that's tending to fizzle away by dawn, and only a relatively few amount of roads affected by that. Now, The rain in the southeast does ease off during the afternoon, but it stays generally grey with some mist and drizzle in places. Much brighter skies are starting to move in from the west, and a pleasant enough afternoon in western parts, 9 or 10 Celsius with lighter winds, but in the east, well, it stays grey, and we see more of that into the start of the weekend. Low cloud, mist, fog, some pockets of frost where we do have clear spells. But in the northwest, well, the cloud thickens through the morning, and later on the next band of rain moves through. That does sweep across the country once again into Sunday, followed by brighter skies, and the weather continues to stay changeable into the start of next week.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. And more than 2.4 million people are now receiving the highest level of incapacity benefit with no requirement to seek work. This is according to new figures. Brits on the highest bracket of unemployment benefits get £5,000 to £7,000 a year extra on top of basic benefits. And this comes with minimal conditions to look for work. But it gets worse, because approval rates for these incapacity benefits have risen from around 50 to 80% in the past 10 years. Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall had this to say earlier today.
This is our inheritance from the Conservative government, and the Tories failed on welfare because they failed on work. We have got almost record numbers of people out of work due to long-term health problems. That's terrible for them, it's terrible for their living standards, it's terrible for employers who want to recruit, and it's terrible for the public finances. So we need big reforms in the way that we work to get more people into those jobs, which will help bring the benefits bill onto a more sustainable footing.
Yeah, I think that's the one who took the winter fuel payment off the elderly, by the way, just for reference. But joining me now is the CEO of WeFix, Scott Mullins. Scott, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. So in Britain, at the moment, you've essentially got an 80% chance of being on the level above, essentially, the highest bracket of benefits. I mean, are we just there for the taking, Scott?
Oh, definitely, Patrick. You know, the handouts are too easy. That's the problem. You know, 2.4 million people are off sick. We're just giving it away. It's just giving handouts out, and we can't continue doing it. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's genuine people who are real sick, and obviously they need the help. But there's a lot of people, just to be quite honest with you, just pouncing off of us. We're allowing it to happen. The country's down on its knees, and we need to stop. We need to sort of stand up a bit. And the people who, you know, are taking the mick and are pouncing off the, unfortunately, off of us, the taxpayers, the government, however you want to see it, they need to be put back into work or don't be given any benefits.
Do you not think it makes a mockery of people who do go out and work really, really hard and do overtime and do whatever, and then have to pay, if you're lucky, quotes unquote, 45% tax on it, right? If you're earning a decent amount of money, you work hard every day, you pay that amount of tax. Meanwhile, someone can get signed for something, and if they go for that highest level of incapacity benefit, then there's an 80% chance they'll get it, and there'll be no requirement ever for them to even look for a job again. I mean, that makes me want to sit home on my backside all day sometimes.
That's right. I mean, we're making it too easy. You're totally right. People can see this is nice and easy. I mean, we need to go back to the 70s and 80s, Patrick, when you were proud to go, what? You know, if you wanted good things in life, you've done a 12, 14-hour shift. You might have had 2 jobs and you were proud to do it. You know, you used to like that. And let's be honest with you, your children are looking how you're behaving, you know, and they're going to be like you. You know, if you're sitting around poncing, getting what you can for free. One, you're putting a country on its knees, and secondly, all you're going to do is make your children do the same. So, yeah, for the people working, you're keeping the country going, well done. For the people who are poncing off of us, you're out of order. And the people who are generally ill, you need the help, and I get that.
Yeah,
I do get that.
Look, absolutely. I feel sorry for them as well, because I think there's probably a lot of scepticism now when people go, I am on this level of incapacity benefit, and it's genuine. I reckon now, because it's got so bad, there's loads of people who go, well, are you on the take? You know, and that's really unfair on those people. But we keep hearing, don't we, oh, we're skint, we're short of money, this country, we've got to raise taxes here, we've got to raise taxes there. Yeah, we've got all these million people who, in my view, most of them will not need to be on this level of benefits. But what do we do to fix it? Would you just what? Just stop it? Would you make it harder for them to get it? How would that work out for you, Scott?
For me, I would make, you know what it's like now. Unfortunately, you know, I'm not blaming doctors and NHS are under a lot of pressure, but, you know, you don't even have to see the doctor now. You can do it online, can't get them on the phone. Can you sign me off for a month? Can you? I would, personally, I would vet people very properly. I would invest our money into doctors, seeing people properly and saying, come on, you're okay. Let's sort this out. Let's get you back into work. Or no, you're taking a liberty. Stop it. We just need to be black and white with things and just be more thorough with people and tell people how they are. And the people who, as I say, are in a little bit of trouble, what did you say? Let's help them ones out. And the people who aren't, behave yourself and start putting something back into the country.
Just lastly, Scott, I think you made a really good point there, which was about how this sets an example to the next generation. And if we've got this number of people now, 2.5 million, however many it was, you know, in this particular situation, if they've got kids and their children are seeing their mum and dad every single day not working and not making any attempt to work and still having quite a nice life, are you worried about the future of Britain?
Oh, definitely. Because, you know, when I was a kid, you know, my parents taught me, you want anything good, Scott, you go out and you go after it. And, you know, you work hard, you get a good day's pay. Now you totally, you know, people are sitting around watching daytime telly, sitting there drinking, eating. Of course, the kids are going to do the same. So, yeah, it's a real concern. And we need to sort of get hold of it fairly lively, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, good luck to you, Scott. Always a pleasure, mate. I really appreciate you coming on the show tonight and making time for us. You take care. Scott Mullins there, CEO of We Fix. Well, loads coming your way, including this at 10 p.m.
The new United Kingdom government will never withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights.
Our Attorney General there, who you never voted for, pledging lifelong allegiance to the ECHR. Oh, and it gets worse because Labour today made it easier for people to break into Britain and stay here. Stay tuned. But first, well, have you seen the latest polling data? I have, and I'll bring it to you very shortly.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lately, it's getting much better. The people getting more educated in terms of overall well-being of the skin health rather than temporary aesthetic treatments. Because most of the treatments in aesthetic, it doesn't change the texture of the skin. It just gives like volumetric result or remove the wrinkles temporarily.
So what are the most popular treatments that people are after?
According to a statistic report, first is anti-wrinkle, then dermal filler, then energy-based device. Yeah. But lately, biostimulators also became very popular. And
what do you mean by biostimulators?
Biostimulator, any substance that can change the texture of the skin, or like it will lead to postpone the aging process, or proliferate more collagen, increase the elasticity of the skin, such as polynucleotide or exosome, or different vitamins and minerals in a form of mesotherapy considered as a biostimulator.
Turkey's a particularly popular popular destination because the costs are so much lower. There have also been a lot of horror stories about what can happen when things go wrong, even people dying from post-surgery complications. What would you advise people?
Choose as a practitioner or surgeon very carefully and never prioritize price over quality. This is your face after all, your body after all. And mistakes can be reversible. It can be irreversible, and sometimes it's not like a booking restaurant or hotel. It's a sensitive matter that can affect their confidence and skin and body for life.
Yeah.
So they need to choose very wisely. They need to search what kind of methodology that particular surgeon, they perform the treatments. Are they using any safety tools?
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Coming up, why are we so out of touch with the rest of the world when it comes to tackling illegal migration? I've got some remarkable stats for you. But first, Reform UK have now taken a 4-point lead over Labour and have moved 6 points ahead of the Tories in a shocking new poll by Find Out Now. It comes on the same day that Nigel Farage's party accused the government of being, quote, a threat to democracy for postponing some local elections, by the way, in areas where Reform might win later this year. News now is Reform UK spokesperson Anne Widdecombe. Anne, thank you very, very much. First things first, then, what do you make of that new polling? Reform appear to be on the charge with Nigel Farage.
Well, absolutely. I mean, of course, it continues a trend that's been going on for some time. We've been rising in the poll steadily. We overtook the Tories some time ago. We've been neck and neck with Labour for a long time. And now it looks as if we really have pulled ahead of them. Now it's one poll, but there are other polls at the moment still showing us neck and neck. So clearly, we're moving in the right direction, and we have been doing so consistently now, really, ever since the general election itself.
Well, you mentioned elections there, and seamlessly so, because Labour has postponed several elections. Conveniently, it would seem, in areas where Reform might have done rather well. So that's why Reform today decided to project that all on the walls of the House of Commons there, which is what we were looking at before. What do you make of this postponement then? Because I think Reform's view now, it seems, is that Keir Starmer's basically a dictator.
I believe any postponement of an election to be wrong, except in very extreme circumstances. I mean, we had all these issues when we had the huge outbreak of foot and mouth a few years ago. When there's something which can impact on movement, then sometimes there's a discussion, not even necessarily then a decision, but a discussion as to whether you postpone an election. But simply to postpone some of them on the highly specious grounds that, oh, well, we're going to have a reorganisation of local government, and so there's no point in having the election. That is wholly wrong. And I don't think, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I don't think it's entirely coincidental that a lot of those proposed postponements are...
...of elections that would essentially be made redundant because you'd have to have other ones when you have a bigger council. And they say it would cost the taxpayer money. And Anne, hey, look, you and I both know. Know how careful with taxpayers' money this socialist government is.
You can just see the big hole in that. If they were going to reorganise councils tomorrow morning, there would be every sense in the world in saying, hold on, they're not doing that. We could have an election and then they get round to the reorganisation. Then all that's got to be done. It would take a couple of years, so we can have a democratic election between now and then. It's a load of old hooey. It really is. Don't fall for it.
Well, OK. Moving on, retail crime is now at an all-time high, with more than 2,000 incidents reported every single day. Last year, more than 70 incidents alone, including the use of a weapon. And by the way, later on in the show, I'm going to show you some absolutely staggering footage of some more broad daylight knife crime that will make your stomach turn. But thefts have reached 20 million incidents. It's costing retailers £2.2 billion. And how do we stop this?
Well, we have to stop it, first of all, through more determined policing, which means more visible policing on the streets. It means the police actually taking shoplifting seriously, which they don't at the moment. We had the incident, only a week or so ago, when somebody was robbed in both her shops. She had every last device. She could supply the camera footage. She could supply the number of the car, the getaway car. She could do it all. Police still weren't interested.
Well, she'd solved the crime, basically, hadn't she?
Until she made a fuss on social media. Then they appeared. So, I mean, first and foremost, don't ask me what we can do about it until the police actually want to do.
Do we not need more police, though? I was thinking this the other night. I was walking home from work, and I actually think you're absolutely right. It is right to criticise the police when they don't respond to stuff. But then I thought, well, couldn't we just probably do with like 20,000 more police? Maybe that is the solution.
Well, Reform have promised 40,000 over the course of a parliament. You can't do 40,000 in 5 minutes. But we would do 40,000 over the course of a parliament. I myself think that is only the start. But you also
how are you funding it, Anne, is the question, isn't it? How are you funding it?
You also need to reorganise what they're doing. There's far too much bureaucracy. A lot of it could be handled by civilians. It isn't just a question. I was saying this back in 1998. This is nothing new. It's far too much bureaucracy, far too much procedure, far too little actual policing. So it isn't just the numbers, it's what they're doing. You can have 40,000 stuck in the back room filling out forms. No good.
No. Now, I would also quite like to see police officers look a bit more intimidating. I walk past quite a few of them and I think, gosh, you are quite dweeby, which maybe is unfair on them, but I like the idea that a police officer could beat someone up if they needed to. But anyway, that's just me, Anne. Thank you very much. Anne Widdecombe, their Reform UK spokesperson. Right, I've got a lot more coming your way. In fact, it's an electric start to the hour. Why? Because I'm going to be talking about this.
The new United Kingdom government will never withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights.
That is our Attorney General. If you didn't know that, that's fine. Why? Because no one ever voted for him. But he's pledging lifelong allegiance now to the ECHR. Oh, and it gets worse, because today, you might have missed this, but today, Labour reversed the most significant laws when it comes to stopping the small boats. And I think they tried to sweep it under the carpet. I've been doing some digging on this, and frankly, they might as well have just put a giant welcome sign on the White Cliffs of Dover. Do you all remember? They said something. What was it now? What was it? Smash the gangs? OK. We're about to be just welcoming a load of people in. Stay tuned for that. I'll reveal all.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Outbreaks of rain will move through overnight, heavy at times, accompanied by gusty winds, along with some hill snow. They do ease, though, by morning, and then turning drier and brighter from the west as the next ridge of high pressure builds in. We've had a ridge of high pressure in place during the day, and under clear skies it will turn chilly for a time during the evening. With rain moving in from the west, that means there'll be some hill snow.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the...
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's Live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's Live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
Welcome back, everybody. Slightly earlier than expected, but hey, you can't get enough of a good thing, can you? It's coming up to 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight. Illegal immigrants just keep coming.
Today, I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
Over in America, Trump is going to send them to Guantanamo Bay. But over here...
The new United Kingdom government will never withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights.
Our Attorney General, who you never voted for, has just pledged lifelong allegiance to the ECHR. How out of touch is Britain? Plus...
Exciting day for the family at Mini Prize. Family fun for everyone.
3-year-olds are taken to a gay pride event. Do you think that's acceptable? And
72 Washington Star 1 Star 32017. Did you see that?
What on earth happened when a plane crashed into a helicopter, or the other way around, really, in America? Trump seems to think DEI might have had a bit to do with it.
To have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent. But we'll restore faith in American air travel.
But much closer to home, I'm going to reveal to you shocking footage of yet another broad daylight knife attack. When will this lawlessness end? Plus... Yet another poll has Reform in the lead, but it is hardly a surprise when you see the state of the Labour Chancellor.
Why did you say it was a decade?
Well, I think you're taking... it's one...
On my panel tonight is former Tory MP Anna Firth. We've got Lord Sean Bailey and ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. And take a look at this, OK? Find out why that should be very, very worrying for you. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Labour has just made life easier for illegal immigrants. Next.
Patrick, thank you. The top stories from the GB Newsroom channel: migrants who put lives at risk will face up to 5 years in jail under a new border security bill. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has outlined plans to make endangering another life during a sea crossing to the UK a new offence. She also announced people selling and handling boat parts suspected of being used in migrant channel crossings could face up to 14 years in prison under new laws trying to crack down on people smugglers. So far this year, more than 1,000 migrants have crossed the English Channel into the UK. GB News' political editor Christopher Hope sat down with the Home Secretary.
Can't just keep doing any more of the gimmicks. It's got to be this really serious law enforcement, and we've got to treat the border security in the same way that we treat issues of security against terror threats, and that's why we're introducing counter-terror style powers to give law enforcement much stronger powers to act early in the same way that they could around terrorism cases, because that's a sign of really the seriousness of this. If we are going to strengthen border security and prevent lives being lost, we have to have stronger law enforcement powers to go after the dangerous gangs.
In other news, President Donald Trump says the cause of last night's Washington, D.C. crash between a plane and a military helicopter is still being investigated, and our hearts are shattered. Authorities in Washington say they don't expect to find any survivors after the collision over the Potomac River. More than 300 emergency responders are searching for survivors. 64 people, including crew, were on board that American Airlines flight. 3 soldiers were on board the Black Hawk helicopter. At least 28 bodies have been recovered so far. The helicopter was on a training flight when the crash happened just before 9 p.m. local time.
Our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now. And in the days to come, we'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come. We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers.
And breaking news this hour, Sean Diddy Combs, also known as Puff Daddy, has been hit with a new criminal indictment in his sex trafficking case. The 3-count indictment contains no additional charges, but references a total of 3 alleged female victims compared with 1 alleged victim in the first indictment. Prosecutors said in a letter to the court today, Combs pleaded not guilty to the first indictment last year. His lawyers did not immediately respond to a request for comments today. More on this story as we get it. And finally, Rolling Stones frontman Sir Mick Jagger has paid tribute to wonderful friend and beautiful singer Marianne Faithfull following her death at the age of 78. In a post on Instagram, Sir Mick wrote, "I'm so saddened to hear of the death of Marianne Faithfull. She was so much part of my life for so long." And an earlier statement said Marianne passed away peacefully in London today in the company of her loving family. Those are the latest headlines for now. It's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening, everybody. By the way, just before I get started with this piece, I have just had sight of the Daily Telegraph's front page, and it is an absolute shocker. I'm going to be bringing it to you at 10:30. You're not going to want to miss that. It looks, frankly, like it's the end of the British countryside and the end of farming as we know it, but stay tuned for that. Today, however, Labour unveiled plans to make it easier for illegal immigrants to stay in Britain. Oh, and they don't even want you to call them illegal immigrants anymore. So in America, Trump is sending illegals to Guantanamo Bay.
Today, I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. Most people don't even know about it. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people.
So many illegals are now fleeing that Mexico can't cope, which is hilarious because now the left are complaining that it's unfair to any country to accept a massive influx of people surging across their border.
Mexico cannot cope. Not sure any country can, but Mexico can't cope with like a sudden influx of millions of people. I mean, as much as she wants to embrace them, to use her word, when they come back and make them feel welcome, it all sounds very nice when you're listening to it, but the reality of that is just completely unsustainable. A lot of these people have lived in the U.S. for decades. They have lives there. They have families. They're good-standing citizens. So
yeah, and they're illegally, aren't they? In Germany, they've just voted to block asylum seekers at the border, enact major new border controls and limit legal immigration. Germany's getting tougher. In Italy, they were deporting people to Albania. They've just restarted that. They're going to send them for processing. And their leader, Giorgia Meloni, has been very clear about telling illegal immigrants about what awaits if they try to enter her nation.
And so I want to send a clear message to those who want to enter Italy illegally. It doesn't pay to rely on human traffickers because they ask a lot of money, they put you on boats that are often not equipped to make those trips. And in any case, if you enter Italy illegally, you will be detained and repatriated. Our situation doesn't allow for anything else.
Crystal clear. And Italy now says it stopped 200,000 people from crossing the Mediterranean. France, just last week, they clamped down as well. They are making it much more difficult for illegal immigrants and asylum seekers to ever get legal status to remain.
France is tightening its policies on undocumented migrants. On Friday, French Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau circulated an official memo to departmental and regional officials which will restrict their capacity to grant them legal status.
Whereas, over here in Britain, the Attorney-General appointed by Prime Minister Keir Starmer has just pledged total lifelong allegiance to the ECHR, the same body that keeps telling us we can't deport foreign rapists and paedophiles because of their human rights.
Now, I'm proud to say that since taking office, this new United Kingdom government has taken steps to uphold our obligations and the international rules-based system. The new United Kingdom government will never withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights or refuse to comply with judgments of the court.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But here's the news of the day. Labour has tabled changes to the illegal immigration bill. Currently, anyone who enters Britain illegally cannot ever claim asylum, and there is a duty to deport them. Now, Labour wants to remove that. Why on earth do they want to do that? How can they say this?
Serious answer is to smash the gangs. We have to take those gangs down, to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade, to smash these gangs.
And then change the law to incentivise illegal immigrants to come to Britain. The more subtle change here is that this means technically everyone coming across the Channel would be an irregular migrant, not illegal, despite breaking into Britain. They say they want to smash the gangs, but they have put a huge sign on the White Cliffs of Dover saying, "Come on in, lads, you're all welcome." Doesn't make any sense. The Tories betrayed Britain with the Boris wave of millions of foreign nationals and their relatives, and it does appear that Priti Patel isn't sorry about that.
Would you like to apologise to all the people that voted Brexit for the fact that you misled them in saying we're going to take back control of our borders and then you threw them open and let in millions of people?
That is totally distortionary and that's not true. And to be quite frank, we made it quite clear it'd be people from the rest of the world, people with skills, based on our economy. And I think people should apologise for those who are saying that actually...
You would like an apology?
We people in the pandemic came here, health and social care visas. What would have happened to our NHS? Are we now saying, are you and others saying we don't need those people in our NHS?
Astonishing, isn't it, when you think about the amount of people that are now on benefits and what that Boris wave is going to cost us. But now Labour are, it appears, about to incentivise people to break into Britain. Now, as part of the legislation announced today, Yvette Cooper sat down with our political editor, Christopher Hope. Now, asked her, apparently, if the government is missing a deterrent like Donald Trump's Guantanamo Bay plans or Rwanda.
So the thing about that Rwanda scheme is they had that in place for 2.5 years, and they sent 4 volunteers, and it cost the taxpayer £700 million. So that just wasn't working in the slightest. It was a gimmick. And that's why what we've done is put the investment, put the staff into tackling returns.
They're literally going to make it easier for people who come to Britain to stay in Britain illegally. It's insane. Saying that Britain is open for business, Keir Starmer tweets this. Look at this. With my government, Britain is open for business. Well, the problem is, Sir Keir, under your government, Britain is open to absolutely anybody else as well, isn't it? As other countries get tough, Britain has gone soft. Let's get thoughts from my panel this evening. We have got former Tory MP Anna Firth, we've got Lord Sean Bailey, and we've got ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. And we are out of touch, are we not, with the rest of the world now?
Oh, we are now that we've got Yvette Cooper repealing everything that the Conservatives were doing. I mean, I cannot believe that she can say that the Rwanda deterrent was in play for 2 years. No, it wasn't. I was actually in the Commons. I was actually voting for it. It didn't get royal assent until earlier this year, and it was going to. The first flights were going to take off last summer, but obviously we didn't get to that opportunity. So, and the National Crime... Here's the point. The National Crime Agency has said many times doesn't matter how much you take on the gangs, the criminal gangs, and how much you try and do other things, unless you have a deterrent, you are not going to stop
the message is now, look, Sean, literally, if you're in Calais now waiting to come over, you now know, no matter what goes on with smashing the gangs, you now know, if you come to Britain, you won't really even be classed as an illegal migrant. You will now be allowed to claim asylum again. You probably will get it as well, and there will be no legal obligation to deport you.
There's 3 things to be said
actually they will know that because the gangs are organised and will go back with that message. We must be clear. This isn't just a bunch of random people, you know, making some money on the side. They're organised criminal gangs. Number two, I've said it before, unless you have a relationship with where that gang is based, the country they're coming from, you'll never smash the gangs. Well, all these things that Yvette Cooper's talking about now remind me of how they try to do with drug dealers. Getting the drug dealer on the corner doesn't stop the drug supply. You need to get Mr. Big. Their focus is in the wrong place.
Matthew, how on earth can that unelected bloke, as the Attorney-General, who, by the way, has represented a procession of people who are, well, in the case of, like, Jerry Adams and co., literally enemies of the British state, OK, how on earth can he stand there and say, we will never deviate from the ECHR? It's the same ECHR that's made us keep paedophiles, rapists and murderers in Britain. What planet is that guy on?
Well, I think I don't think the issue is the ECHR. I think it's the interpretation of the ECHR by British judges. I mean, the cases that you've mentioned are because aren't heard in Strasbourg. They're heard in British courts, and it's how British judges choose to interpret it. Judges in other parts of Europe interpret them rather differently.
I've mentioned have gone to the ECHR. The case of a Nigerian paedophile and a rapist went to the ECHR, and they determined that we could not deport him because his right to a family life in this country, including with his own children, by the way, would be affected. Well,
it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting his choice of language, because in terms of deviating, we do deviate from the ECHR. Prisoners' votes, which we don't give in the UK, were deemed to be necessary by the ECHR, and we just ignored it. I think that happened under both governments, from red and blue.
The important thing for the ECHR now is the rest of Europe is beginning to move away from it. In Germany, they've just voted for legislation that flies in the face of the ECHR. So I think you'll put Germany in a very complicated case. The Polish don't seem particularly enthusiastic about it. The French have started to make moves, and the Italians are definitely going to have to confront their membership as well.
Well, sorry, no one voted for that guy.
He is representing the view of the elected government. I mean, it is the collective view.
There we go. Yeah, but there we go.
It's not just him on his own.
So we are being led by someone who's basically been an international human rights lawyer, who's got a complete global perspective on certain things, and has himself, he will hide behind the cab rank rule, has himself represented some of society's worst individuals. And now he's got his mate in, who's the Attorney-General, who's chiming in and saying we will never leave the ECHR. Do they want to leave the next election?
It's no surprise, is it, that boat crossings are up by 30% since this useless Labour government came into power? Of course they are, because as you say, Patrick, we've now made it completely clear we're not going to have any deterrent. These people are going to arrive. We're going to continue to give them food and benefits and accommodation. It's already costing.
We're actually sending more people back. More people have been repatriated now than have been sent for months, because your government didn't do it. You just sat there and never sent anybody home, Anna. Never sent anybody home.
Matthew, the reason more people have been repatriated is because they're being returned to Albania. You know that. 40%.
No, these are people from other countries other than Albania. It's nothing to do with Albania. It's nothing to do with Albania.
The reason more people are being repatriated than ever before is because the Conservatives are not fighting the government when they're trying to do it. Every move the Conservatives tried to make, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you we were good, I'm not saying that, but every move we tried to make, the Labour Party fought against it, and it is an act of real cynicism that they voted against things that they're trying to keep now.
Absolutely.
And that shows you it's a deliberate political tactic to stymie the Conservatives, but unfortunately the whole country is...
If Labour... Sorry, Matthew, I'll just put this to you. Sure. If during the general election, I've lost track of the amount of times, a variety of different topics I have said this, but if during the general election Labour has stood up and they had said that anybody who enters Britain illegally over the Channel, we will change the law to make it so that that's not an illegal entry, and we will change the existing law, which means that they can never be granted asylum, and we will give them the opportunities to do so. In fact, now I say it, I can remember sitting in this seat where there was a headline in the Telegraph that said Labour would do that, and Labour denied it. And now they've done it, haven't they?
Well, the issue is that what happened under the Tories is you said that people couldn't claim asylum, but they didn't go anywhere, so they just sat in those hotels. And the number of hotels has gone down. Fact, Anna, fact.
Yeah, but where have those people gone?
The asylum hotels are
home in many cases.
Asylum hotels has now gone up, Matthew.
I mean, 700 million quid. did. 4 people went to Rwanda and they volunteered, Anna. £700 million. And at the most, it was going to be 350 people. What we need is offshore processing.
This is not going to work. This is Yvette Cooper has said she doesn't like gimmicks. This is the most gimmick-riddled bill that I have ever seen. She's saying in here we're going to get immigration down with no deterrent. The thing that the National Crime Agency said we had to have.
I want to sit between both of them because I will accept that the Conservatives could have and should have done significantly more, but let's be clear, it's about to get significantly worse. And the real thing is, by removing that particular law that you can still apply for status even though you came here illegally, is music to the ears of people smugglers. They will go back and they will trumpet that. And let's be clear, this is going to make this situation worse for the next 100 years, because every time we accept a family, we are legally obliged to look after them as we should. And this now says that we will accept anybody all the time.
What I will say, and I will put to you, actually, Anna, we saw a clip from Priti Patel there that I must say, and I like Priti Patel, she may even be watching, I don't know, but I do think that was a devastating clip. Say sorry. Say sorry to the millions of people you let in, and the 32 billion quid, I think it is it not, that their dependents are going to cost the taxpayer in the coming 10 years or so, that was revealed last night. That was an absolute betrayal. And you know, you look at this now, we can have a go at Priti Patel, as we are, or as I am doing anyway, and you can have a go at Yvette Cooper. But this is just the big winner out of this is Nigel Farage, isn't it?
Do you know the real problem we have here? Let's be clear. Nigel Farage has been singing this tune the whole time, so he can legitimately win from this, and I think he will. The real problem we have coming now, as Italy, France and Germany toughen up and we're perceived to go the other way...
I think that's a huge opportunity for us, Sean.
I beg to differ. Even if you are pro-immigration, you must believe that we have to have some control on the numbers. And illegal immigration...
Absolutely, and you're going to see EU... And what we need is proper offshore processing for thousands of cases before they ever get here. Not 350 people slipped away to Rwanda, cost us $700 million.
Well, there's no offshore processing in this bill, Matthew. So no,
I'm saying that's what we're moving towards. Because this bill isn't to do... This bill is to do another part of it. But anyway, Anna, Patrick asked you, will you apologise for Priti Patel?
No mention of something.
No, clearly not, Anna, because you don't want to defend the record when you guys sat there and let a million people in under Boris's law.
This bill is complete rubbish from Yvette Cooper.
As much as I love this, we have got people who are listening on radio, and that will be, I dare say, maybe unlistenable. But should Priti Patel have apologised?
I think that I can't comment on, you know, I'm not...
Yes. You sat there. You should apologise as well, Anna, for your government.
My position, Patrick, is that we should not have let numbers get to that level.
But you voted for it.
I think one of the big mistakes was allowing people to come in to work in the health service but bring their dependents.
And a mistake authored by Boris Johnson's Tory government.
Let's be clear. The Priti Patel should have apologised.
Absolutely.
But Yvette Cooper should also apologise. That's the point, isn't it? The people of Britain, rich and poor, are now in a bind, and we need to work it out. And why the Labour government should really apologise, because they made any conversation about immigration feel like you were a racist. I mean, Keir Starmer literally used the words, what do you call us, far right, because people are concerned about the laws of that. Right.
He actually made in his conference speech, he specifically said he didn't say that.
But the point is,
he said talking about immigration is not right-wing.
He has created a situation where people cannot have a realistic conversation about immigration, and we're all going to suffer, those immigrants as well.
I think the difficulty for Keir Starmer, and this is something that's going to be borne out, or otherwise, of course, in the fullness of time, is if it works for Trump in America, if it works for Germany, if it works for France, if it works for Italy, and we are taking what many people might regard as the opposite approach, then he, and indeed his mate, the Attorney-General, are probably going to have a little bit of explaining to do. But we wait with bated breath, don't we? I've got a lot more coming your way, but before all of that, time is running out and you're trying to win 50 grand in cold, hard, tax-free cash. Make sure you don't miss out.
Lines close tomorrow.
All right, good luck, everybody. So I'm going to bring you all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. By the way, the front of the Daily Telegraph is absolutely shocking. 10th of farmland axed for net zero. Ed Miliband is about to turn our countryside into a solar farm hellscape. But before that, Starmer's just given thousands of small boat migrants the green light. We've been talking about it, haven't we? The Tory government's legislation has been reversed in some aspects. Well, I am joined by a former Attorney-General, Michael Ellis, to let us know what he thinks is really going on. There we are. Stay tuned.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Have you noticed that more and more stores are closing? Well, last year, apparently 13,000 stores closed for the last time on the high street.
Well, experts warn the worst is still to come for our small businesses.
Well, let's talk to retail expert Jeremy Baker. Good morning to you, Jeremy. How bad is it and what can be done?
Well, nothing can be done about it. Retail is like that. It's a boom and bust operation. So last year, let's say you had a shop and it was booming. This year, the consumer can just change their mind. They don't need to come back to your shop ever again.
Well, it is sad, Jeremy, because our high streets are the beating heart of our communities, aren't they? And for many people, I know I can relate to my high street, it is such a depressing sight, walking down there and seeing them all boarded up and closed down.
But how often do you walk down that boarded up high street? I think people move on to something else. The online world is very big. Yeah. And lots of other things are very exciting. And so people, you know, the shop... I like to go to my GP in a shopping centre and get my tests done there rather than tramp off all the way to the GP, for example. And children could go to little schools in the high street. I've seen that happen already. So lots of things could happen to the high street. It could be much more a social centre. Much more kind of like pubs, coffee shops, all that. Charities. I don't see anything wrong with charities taking over, but the idea of the shop-centred high street finished, that's gone. Never coming back. Goodbye. It's not sad, it's just life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys. Now, I'm very excited for tonight's front pages. There are some corkers on there. Watch out for the front of the Daily Telegraph. But first, as you've been hearing, Keir Starmer today officially reversed the previous Tory government's flagship Safety of Rwanda Act. They've effectively decriminalised all small boat migrants that arrive in the UK, thus giving them the green light to apply for asylum here. And it gets worse, because speaking at the European Council earlier this week, the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, pledged that the UK will never challenge the ECHR.
Now, I'm proud to say that since taking office, this new United Kingdom government has taken steps to uphold our obligations and the international rules-based system. The new United Kingdom government will never withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights or refuse to comply with judgments of the court.
Ridiculous. Well, that comes after a Daily Express poll yesterday revealed that 52% of Brits now want to leave the ECHR. I'm joined now, and I'm very pleased to be joined now, by a former Attorney General, Sir Michael Ellis. So, Michael, you've had that guy's job previously.
That's right.
What do you make of that in itself, then, standing up there saying Britain will never deviate from the ECHR?
Well, look, in life generally, and certainly in politics, you should never say never. I mean, for one thing, Patrick, I mean, this government is likely to only be in office for a 4 and a half years. To say never is crazy. But also, you know, there are 10,000 judgments, at least 10,000 judgments of the ECHR that have not been followed by other countries in the Council of Europe that are under their jurisdiction. So there's 47 countries that have been under the jurisdiction of the ECHR. Between them, they've ignored over 10,000 judgments. So to commit the United Kingdom to say, well, any judgment the ECHR ever comes up with at any point over the lifetime of this government, we will not disagree with, is an extraordinary commitment to make. And it may well be one that they rue their words.
So, I mean, when you put it like that, it's astonishing, actually. So conceivably, anything that the ECHR tells us to do, our Attorney General has just said we will do.
It's a hostage to fortune.
Quite dangerous.
It's a real hostage to fortune. I mean, so let's put it this way. In Greece didn't follow a judgment of the ECHR when they were ordered to not segregate HIV-positive prisoners. Police brutality in Bulgaria, there was a ruling about that. ECHR wasn't followed by the Bulgarians. There are numerous other rulings that have not been followed by those countries. To actually commit us to say, well, we're not going to ever disagree with anything the ECHR it's going to say in the future is a real hostage to fortune.
But what does that say about the mindset of our Attorney General? And I will drag Keir Starmer into this because supposedly they've had a long-standing relationship, both professionally and personally, and ultimately he appointed him. So what can we learn about the psychology of our leader and the Attorney General from what we've just heard there?
I genuinely think that Keir Starmer's philosophy about the law, especially international law, is that the law is the master of the people. Now, I don't see it that way, and I think the law should be the servant of the people. The law should adapt to the wishes of the democratically elected government, which has been elected by the people. And it shouldn't be fixed in stone. Anyone would think that these rulings from the ECHR are crafted in stone and brought down from Mount Sinai. They're fallible rulings. Judges make mistakes, circumstances change. That's why we have courts of appeal. To commit indefinitely to a ruling of any court is most unwise, I think. And I think it's the mentality that international law is a superior entity. It has the right to tell the people of this country, frankly, you may think that, but you're wrong. And I don't agree with that. And that's why we have the sovereignty of Parliament. It's Parliament that's sovereign, not the ECHR. And if Parliament wants to pass a law to say that the ECHR should be ignored, it is constitutionally allowed to do that.
So conceivably, look, this is a question. So if we voted for something as a public, if we happened to have a referendum on something, say, and we voted for something and Parliament said, all right, OK, we'll go along with that even if we didn't want to, and somehow it found its way into the ECHR, could, like, some bloke from Moldova decide that we shouldn't do that and we'd accept that now?
Well, that is the theory behind it. I mean, the reality is that if you abrogate the sovereignty of a country to a supranational institution like the ECHR, you are saying that this is going to be controlling what we do. And it's the same principle for the International Criminal Court and other... We have the same argument, of course, with the Chagos Islands.
Yeah.
It's advisory rulings which are treated as gospel by this government and have said, well, we'll follow it as though it were absolutely written in stone and we have no option. Well, I think the people of this country should be free to make decisions and enforce those decisions through the sovereignty of our Parliament based in Westminster.
Wasn't in the manifesto, this, was it?
Well, you'll have to tell me whether it was in their manifesto or not. I didn't take...
I think I might have noticed in their manifesto, I think a lot of people might have, if it said, we will adhere to every single ECHR ruling. I think that might have stood out for a time. It might have even been a slight game changer at the last election. I don't know. When it comes to specifically, I know a lot of our viewers and listeners care about illegal immigration, right? And I regularly report on cases where you have some of these most heinous people who are here up for asylum or have maybe been granted asylum previously, have gone on to commit unspeakable crimes. We have wanted to deport them, but then it's found its way to the ECHR, and usually it's things to do with the right to a family life or the threat of persecution they might face for allegedly being, say, bisexual in the case of a Jamaican chap. So we would not really be able to control our own borders if we adhered to the ECHR.
Well, if you're saying, you know, if the Labour government is saying we are never going to challenge a decision from the ECHR, we're never going to ignore it, we're never going to challenge it, if that's what's being said, then clearly that will be the case. And every ruling will have to be adhered to. It's an extraordinary position to take. I mean, that's why we have the courts of appeal, because judges make mistakes, and the ECHR is capable of making a mistake too. I mean, it's a very strange thing to commit to. I would hope that they'll reflect on this and say, look, we actually do have a responsibility to the electorate of this country to do what they would like us to do, and not what a supranational body who have no care for this country, who have no actual interest in it, are ordering us to do. I think the sovereignty of Parliament here is really important.
And it's 5 years, is it, from Brexit tomorrow, I think? So it's quite telling, isn't it? The timing of it. Thank you very much. Always a real pleasure
to be here,
see you here on GB News. So thank you so much. That's Sir Michael Ellis there, former Attorney General. Coming up, the very first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages have landed. There is some breaking news. Ed Miliband is on the brink of turning the countryside into a solar panel hellscape, which is another blow for farmers. Just before I throw it, I will say that, you know, OK, I'm sure that our Attorney General will say that he thinks he's doing the right thing, it's the way he's operated, naturally it will make a fairer society. But, you know, plenty of people might disagree with that. Stay tuned.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Strong winds across the Canary Islands, also some wet and windy weather for the Balearic Islands, but largely settled elsewhere across eastern parts of the Mediterranean, particularly for Greece and parts of Italy. But as we move our way westwards, this is where we'll find the unsettled weather, so some heavy showers, also some strong winds at times. But further west, largely settled as high pressure dominates, but that is going to bring in some strong winds at times across Madeira and also Tenerife. But that's where we'll see the best of the temperatures, and also largely settled as we head towards the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Outbreaks of rain will move through overnight, heavy at times, accompanied by gusty winds, along with some hill snow. They do ease, though, by morning, and then turning drier and brighter from the west as the next ridge of high pressure builds in. We've had a ridge of high pressure in place during the day, and under clear skies it will turn chilly for a time during the evening. With rain moving in from the west, that means there'll be some hill snow for northern England and Scotland. Heavy rain elsewhere, and accompanied by gusty winds, an unsettled night to come, and a chilly, grey, in places damp start to Friday. A lot of low cloud is expected first thing, as well as some further outbreaks of rain and drizzle, some heavier rain likely through southern counties of England into London and the southeast. That is moving through, though. Wales and the southwest by 7 a.m. starting to turn dry and brighter. Best of the sunshine through Northern Ireland, parts of western Scotland as well, although much of the rest of Scotland staying relatively gloomy with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. But the hill snow that we're expecting overnight, that's tending to fizzle away by dawn, and only a relatively few amount of roads affected by that. Now, the rain in the southeast does ease off during the afternoon, but it stays generally grey with some mist and drizzle in places. Much brighter skies are starting to move in from the west, and a pleasant enough afternoon in western parts, 9 or 10 Celsius with lighter winds, but in the east, well, it stays grey, and we see more of that into the start of the weekend. Low cloud, mist, fog, some pockets of frost where we do have clear spells. But in the northwest, well, the cloud thickens through the morning, and later on the next band of rain moves through. That does sweep across the country once again into Sunday, followed by brighter skies, and the weather continues to stay changeable into the start of next week.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Headliners on GB News, 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time for tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and check this out on the front of the Daily Telegraph. So, 1/10 of Britain's farmland is being axed for net zero. Solar farms and tree planting are set to replace food production in a fresh blow for rural life. This is at Ed Miliband's door. Ed Miliband, who now, again, another little snippet in this article, apparently did actually speak out against the expansion of Heathrow's third runway, contravening what was announced by the Chancellor yesterday. The Prime Minister's new backing as well for it. He spoke out about that on Tuesday. So he is at war with Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer now, it appears. But this is ridiculous. So more than 10% of farmland in England is set to be diverted to net zero and protecting wildlife by 2050. The move is part of a consultation being launched, say, by Steve Reid, who is obviously the Rural Affairs Minister, and a further 5% is expected to be mostly taken out of production, owing to a decreased level of food output. We're going to talk about that in a minute, because I know that's going to get a lot of people going. The Independent. Horror at 67 killed in plane and helicopter crash in Washington. We're also going to be talking about that. We've got some astonishing footage for you. The Metro. A nation of shoplifters. Nearly 500,000 offences in a year. A staffer warned against challenging shoplifters. The Eye. Treat patients at home to prevent NHS hospital bed blocking, Wes Streeting tells health bosses. And the Mail, now prove your, quotes, growth agenda isn't all hot air. As court blocks North Sea oil projects that could generate billions, Kemi challenges Starmer and Miliband to basically, deal with that. Go to the Telegraph this, because this is insane. So, Ed Miliband appears to be willing, and Steve Reid, to be fair, you know, is the Rural Affairs Minister, appear to be willing to turn a tenth of Britain's farmland into solar panels and, like, bee gardens instead of having food production.
Absolutely insane, isn't it? I mean, food production is part of our national infrastructure. You know, if we can't feed ourselves as a nation, we are inherently weaker, and we are inherently putting ourselves in a far more dangerous position. I mean, the guy's insane.
Can I just say, there's a line in this that sums up this Labour government for me, right? So they obviously thought, OK, where could we go to announce something about the countryside? So they thought, the Royal Geographic Society sounds good. In Kensington. Right? In Kensington. It's not
a Labour MP now, but...
It's not the wilderness, is it? But no, I mean, Sean, what do you make of this? I mean, farmers are going to be... They're getting clobbered with the tax, and now it does appear it's because Ed Miliband wants to plant or post a load of solar farms on their land.
I think what I'd say is two things. It seems unnecessary to me. When you see all of the urban areas, the rooftops we have, you could be putting this stuff alongside the motorway, which in many cases is not decent farmland, it's just motorway and the verge, etc. We could put it there. I'm not sure why we're taking away farmland. And the thing about farmland is, even if it's not being used today, you have to keep it because we may need it tomorrow. And if you can't feed yourself, you are in real trouble. The other pieces as well, this will move people away from the net zero if I'm sat at my house and I think, look, it'll be great to generate all of our things through net zero. Not if it's going to stop us feeding ourselves. No. Not if it's going to put my bills up. This does feel ridiculous, and I think somebody needs to have a real look at this before it comes into action.
That's the fatal flaw, in my view, Matthew, with Ed Miliband, because his big thing about why we need all these pylons and whatever we need wind farms is because we have to make sure that we are self-sufficient on energy, so the likes of Putin can't turn the taps off and the dictators can't turn the taps off. But if we can't feed ourselves, then it's pointless, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, there is some detail in the story, which is that 20% of our farmland only produces 3% of our calories and takes 90% of the subsidy. So that's what the government would argue, is that this is not, this is marginal to feeding the nation. It's 3%. But of course, when you're thinking about the most subsidised places, you know from your days in Cumbria, the Cumbrian sheep farmers, etc. So are we saying that those are the places that are going to get these solar panels? So I think that's going to be another question. It may not quite work out as easily as the government hopes.
Let's just whiz ourselves on, because I do want to get to what has been another massive story of the day, and there's a lot of footage that we've got of it as well. It's time to turn to the tragic events in the US. This is the moment an American Airlines passenger flight collided with a US Army Black Hawk helicopter above Washington. We've highlighted it on your screen there. You should be able to see it. So what you are looking at there is clearly the bright light there is the plane, OK? And the helicopter will emerge at some point, and it does thunder into it. Unfortunately, it appears that there were no survivors, and the 64 passengers and crew on the American Airlines flight have all perished, as well as 3 soldiers on the helicopter. It marks the first commercial air crash in the US since 2009. This is an incredibly mysterious case. We did also earlier on play you some audio of the air traffic control, well, when it happened. And what happened was that you can hear them say, like, can you see this plane? That's what they're saying to the Black Hawk helicopter. Can you see this plane? And they say, yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, gosh, oh, no, it's there. And then wallop, it happens. It just seems quite inconceivable. I'm going to defer to you, Sean, if you don't mind, because you have got some military experience. So what do you think has gone on here?
I think the first thing to say is America has some of the best air crash investigators on the planet, so they will get to the bottom of this, and my heart goes out to those families. You have to remember, in Washington, America in general, they have much more air traffic than we do in this country, and military vehicles, by their very nature, fly outside of lanes in a different way to passenger planes. They are very regimented where they go. Until they do a thorough investigation, people simply won't know what's happened. It is extraordinary, though, that this has happened, because that plane, I imagine, would be where it's meant to be when it's meant to be. Because, like I say, you know when your plane's going to leave. We'll have to see when they get to the bottom of this. But nobody will want to hear this, but it's a first crashes they've had since 2009, which shows you the system does work, and this is an extraordinarily sad event.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's human error, isn't it, really? Something's gone wrong, and it appears that something's gone wrong with
well, you don't know that, because these things are heavily computerised as well.
Although the president did say that he knew what happened straight away. I mean, at the press conference, the defence secretaries and transport secretaries say, "Well, we need to find out what's going on. This is what we know so far." And then Trump just said, "Here's my theory."
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it is conceivable he knows stuff that we don't.
Well, do you think the defence and transport secretaries would know it as well?
I hope we do get some information, because it does seem inexplicable, doesn't it? It's as you say, it's a military aircraft. You'd have thought a military pilot would be able to duck and dive. And
let's have a little listen. It's only a short clip, so make sure you listen closely. But this is the air traffic control of the incident.
72 Washington Star 1 Star 32017.
Did you see that? 472.
Yeah, could we just play that again? Just because I think people might have missed a couple of bits of that. And it's quite difficult to tune into when you hear those kind of muffled things. So there we go.
72 Washington Star 1 Star 32017.
Did you see that? 472.
Can you see that?
Can you see that?
Can you see it? That's the moment just before they hit it. Can you see that?
Don't you think that in a way shows that instruction was too late? If they were worried that this guy couldn't see it, why didn't they say that to him when he had a chance to get out of the way?
You've got to remember, these vehicles, particularly the jet plane, would have been going at a very high speed, have a very short time to react. But like I say, it's all speculation until we figure out why the helicopter was there and the plane were there. Were any of them off their track they were given? Was any of them early or late? All of these things need to be figured out first.
That is live images of Washington. If you're watching us on TV or online right now, that search, well, sadly, it's not a rescue operation, is it? Recovery operation. They're going to have to get that craft back out from the bottom of the water there. So there we go. Yeah, that's ongoing. Again, unfortunately, they don't believe that there are any survivors. It seems inexplicable that there could be, to be honest. But yeah, hopefully we get some answers as to what exactly happened. Look, I've got a lot more coming your way later tonight, and I'm going to be revealing some more front pages. And yeah, loads more, including an absolutely astonishing clip for you of more lawless Britain, just knife crime rampant in broad daylight. Stay tuned. Sorry, I made that bit up.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, we're going to introduce you to Liam Wildish. Liam, well, I'd like to think he's a friend of mine because I follow him on Instagram, on TikTok there as well.
You're a big fan, aren't you?
Big fan, because there's what he does. He's a cleaner. He cleans signs. But the thing is, he's not employed by councils or whatever. He does this voluntarily. And you sort of think to yourself, well, who cleans these signs? Why have these signs been allowed to get into this terrible state of disrepair and filthiness?
So, basically, long story short, about 6 years ago, I used to be a window cleaner. In the community where I lived, I noticed all of the road signs were filthy, and I was perfectly equipped to clean them. So, basically, I cleaned the road signs as a bit of a thank you to the community and sort of make a little bit of awareness in my window cleaning business at the time. Yeah. Sort of cleans up the area, makes the road safer, and that's kind of how that started. And people found it like a really satisfying sort of approach. So that sort of led on to today of a video in cleaning the dirty road signs and making sort of satisfying content with it as well.
What is the equipment? What have we got here?
So this is a water-fed pole system connected to a backpack, which is what feeds the water through the end of the brush there. It's perfectly equipped to basically remove this green dirty, it's like a mildew build-up that you get on the signs. Yeah. As you can see, this is like extremely effective at removing so.
So GBNews viewers, if they spot a particularly grisly sign in their area, then they can get in touch.
They can do, yeah.
And Liam Wildish, the sign guy, can sort you out.
If you find Liam the sign guy online, drop me a message, let me know, and I'll add you to my list of places.
GBNews, the People's Channel.
All right, welcome back. So more papers for you now. The Guardian, watchdog, women face epidemic of violence, an epidemic of violence against women and girls, apparently. That's according to the National Audit Office. Let's go to the Daily Express. No survivors from that plane crash horror. They've also got a front page here, an exclusive, they say. Nigel Farage issues a warning. We need people who believe in Brexit. Well, there we go, 5 years on from Brexit. And The Sun, how bloody dare you? Russian arrest warrant for Sunman Starkey. The Sun's defence editor, Jerome Starkey, was yesterday slapped with a Russian arrest warrant over his fearless coverage of Vladimir Putin's Ukraine invasion. I like the fact the Sun have splashed on that, and we're splashing on, sticking up for one of their own, to be fair. Well done. OK, right. Well, this could be a problem, a big problem. NASA scientists have warned that an asteroid the size of a football pitch could collide with Earth in several years' time. The asteroid was discovered on Christmas Day, and current projections show that the asteroid could be in Earth's near orbit as soon as 2032, which has got me thinking, all right, if you knew an asteroid was about to hit Earth, you had 1 day left, what would you do with that day, Anna?
Well, you know what? I thought I better consult one of your biggest fans, Patrick.
Oh, yeah.
Faye Arnold is 91. She's 92 this year, and she watches you every night.
Hello, Faye.
Hello, Faye.
Hello.
Can we all give Faye a wave?
Absolutely.
I wanted Faye to help me with this, but Faye actually didn't help me because it's not happening for a good few years.
Right.
So I thought to myself, what actually? I mean, you know, try and get on Musk's rocket to Mars.
You're thinking practically. So because a lot of people might just think pub. But you've gone, I'm clinging to the outside of Musk.
I rejected that, Patrick. That's going to be too much rushing around on my last day. No, it's got to be big party. No need to worry about the hangover.
We're back at the pub. Hey, there we go. Sean, what do you do if you had 1 day left on Earth?
Firstly, I've got a jigsaw I need to finish.
Rock and roll, Sean, you are so...
He lives on the edge.
What's it of? The British Isles, and so much of it is blue, it's hard to do. Anyway, forget that.
Not after last election.
Hey.
What would I do? I'd just gather everybody around.
Just give a big hug.
Yeah, big hug.
Matthew, keep it clean, family show.
For the gin.
Reach for the gin. Reach for the gin. There we go. All right, fair enough. Well, coming up next is Headliners, of course, and tonight it is indeed presented by the wonderful Josh Howie. Josh, you've got quite a bit to go at tonight, I think. Haven't you? What's on your show?
We've got a lot of news. Did DEI cause the Washington plane crash? Russell Brand, as the BBC report has just come out into that. He's a very old friend of mine. Let's see which side we're going to go on there. And also, we have a man murdered in Sweden for burning the Quran. So basically, we're going to see how much we can say without being cancelled, whilst also telling jokes.
Or
Let's see how that goes.
potentially, as well, is the other thing, because that does appear to be a thing now. And that's how we started the show, isn't it? Which is that, you know, you can cause offence to a few other religions, but there does appear to be one in Europe that might end up with you losing your head. But, Josh, thank you very much, and good luck, obviously. Josh Howie there with Headliners next. Make sure that you do continue to keep it GB News, because Headliners is, frankly, the best way to finish your evening. It's there for the next hour, 11 till midnight. It's going to be a fantastic lineup. I would just like to thank everyone on my wonderful panel tonight. Thank you very much, guys. And can I just tell you as well, I am off tomorrow, OK? I know sometimes I have a habit of not telling people when I'm off, and then you all get very worried. I'm fine. I intend to live. I will be back again on Monday, so I will see you then. Alex Armstrong will do a corker of a show, so make sure you tune in tomorrow at 9 p.m. Take care.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Outbreaks of rain will move through overnight, heavy at times accompanied by gusty winds along with some hill snow. They do ease though by morning and then turning drier and brighter from the west as the next ridge of high pressure builds in. We've had a ridge of high pressure in place during the day, and under clear skies it will turn chilly for a time during the evening. With rain moving in from the west, that means there'll be some hill snow for northern England and Scotland. Heavy rain elsewhere and accompanied by gusty winds, an unsettled night to come, and a chilly, grey, in places damp start to Friday. A lot of low cloud is expected first thing, as well as some further outbreaks of rain and drizzle, some heavier rain likely through southern counties of England into London and the southeast. That is moving through, though. Wales and the southwest by 7 a.m. starting to turn dry and brighter. Best of the sunshine through Northern Ireland, parts of western Scotland as well, although much of the rest of Scotland staying relatively gloomy with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. But the hill snow that we're expecting overnight, that's tending to fizzle away by dawn, and only a relatively few amount of roads affected by that. Now, the rain in the southeast does ease off during the afternoon, but it stays generally grey with some mist and drizzle in places. Much brighter skies are starting to move in from the west, and a pleasant enough afternoon in western parts, 9 or 10 Celsius with lighter winds. But in the east, well, it stays grey, and we see more of that into the start of the weekend. Low cloud, mist, fog, some pockets of frost where we do have clear spells. But in the northwest, the cloud thickens through the morning, and later on the next band of rain moves through. That does sweep across the country once again into Sunday, followed by brighter skies, and the weather continues to stay changeable into the start of next week.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is Good Luck. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Ironic article in The Guardian, Nick, caring about facts.
Yeah, this is Meta is ushering in a world without facts, says Nobel Peace Prize winner. And they just seem to give these Nobel Peace Prizes to anyone these days. So it's Maria Ressa.
Not working.
Zuckerberg came out, and it was very bold. He said a few things. We're going to use community notes instead of fact checkers. Fact checkers in inverted commas, because it just means people pushing usually a specific viewpoint. Community notes seems to be a great system that X uses, so why not do that? I think that's great. He's going to reduce restrictions on topics like immigration and gender. Good, because I'm against censorship. He's going to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more, which is great. He's also moving content moderation to Texas instead of California, which is banter. So now the cynical version is he just realises we've got a new regime, it's the MAGA era, and I want to be mates with Trump, who said that I should that if I interfere with the 2024 election, he should spend the rest of his life in prison. So he did mention he might be a bit scared of that. He was involved in that in Facebook suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and I feel that he didn't like being a part of all that from watching.
And also the suppression of arguments about gender and sex, what is biological sex and whatnot. You get banned for saying there are two sexes.
They're on the wrong side of this, and now he's correcting. But the weird thing is the people, of course, the people who don't like this, the lefties, this person, Ressa, is saying that this is a big problem. It's an extremely dangerous time. I've seen all this from the lefties. They just call it disinformation. They're worried about this because to them it's disinformation. To other people, it's information.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think we can all agree if people think they're getting their facts just directly from Facebook, then something's horribly wrong. But we know that. The community notes thing, I think, is quite good because that sort of first-hand experience people are putting down, aren't they?
Yeah. People have loads of different views come together, and it's an aggregate, so that's why it works.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, it's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for tomorrow's newspapers tonight. Join us over the next hour to find out what the government has planned for 10% of our farmland, why you better start sucking up to your grandparents much earlier than usual, and what nursery rhyme is Hertfordshire Police now allowed to sing. I'm Josh Howie, and tonight I'm joined by band members Steve and Alan and Nick Dixon to take you through Friday's top stories. This is Headliners. But before tomorrow's news, let's go to tonight's headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Josh, thank you very much. The top stories: channel migrants who put lives at risk will face up to 5 years in jail under a new border security bill. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has outlined plans to make endangering another life during a sea crossing to the UK a new offence. She also announced people selling and handling boat parts suspected of being used in migrant channel crossings. They could face up to 14 years in prison under new laws trying to crack down on people smugglers. So far this year, more than 1,000 migrants have crossed the English Channel into the UK. President Donald Trump says the cause of last night's Washington, D.C. crash between a plane and a military helicopter is still being investigated, and our hearts are shattered. Authorities in Washington say they don't expect to find any survivors after the collision over the Potomac River. More than 300 emergency responders are searching for survivors. 64 people, including crew, were on the American Airlines flight. 3 soldiers were on board the Black Hawk helicopter. At least 28 bodies have been recovered. The helicopter was on a training flight when the crash happened just before 9 p.m. local time.
Our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now. And in the days to come, we'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come. We're here for you to wipe away the tears and to offer you our devotion, our love, and our support. There's great support. In moments like this, the differences between Americans fade to nothing compared to the bonds of affection and loyalty that unite us all, both as Americans and even as nations. We are one family, and today we are all heartbroken. We're all searching for answers.
And Rolling Stones frontman Sir Mick Jagger has paid tribute to wonderful friend and beautiful singer Marianne Faithfull following her death at the age of 78. In a post on Instagram, Sir Mick wrote, "I'm so saddened to hear of the death of Marianne Faithfull. She was so much part of my life for so long." And an earlier statement said Marianne passed away peacefully in London today in the company of her loving family. In addition to her music career, Faithfull also acted in films including The Girl on a Motorcycle, as well as theatre productions. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. It's time for Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's top stories with 3 available comedians. We're going to kick off with a look at some of the front pages. First, we have the Daily Telegraph. 10th of farmland acts for net zero. The Guardian, watchdog, women face epidemic of violence, and the Mail, now prove your growth agenda isn't all hot air. So, quite a lot of news stories to get through. Hello, Steve, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Now get on with the Telegraph.
I'm nervous about losing a tenth of farmland. Tenth of farmland acts for net zero. Solar farms and tree planting set to replace food production in fresh blow to rural life. It's worth bearing in mind that this is by 2050, so none of it's going to happen. There's never been a government that's ever managed to make anything happen over that time span. Because by the end of this term...
No, we did the Millennium Dome.
Yeah.
That happened.
But 5 years from now, 4 or 5 years, there'll be another election, and then someone will come in saying, don't worry, we won't be getting rid of all the farmland. So let's not panic too much. But the plan at the moment is it's Stephen Reed who's got this idea of doing all this stuff. This is very much the opposite of what Rachel Reeves is going. She's basically build stuff, knock down the farmland to build more stuff.
Well, it is growth. It's just growth of trees.
Well, it's not even growth of trees now. Well, I suppose you'll get some trees, but they'll have to knock those down to build the solar power things. Look, none of this particularly makes sense. It's more like it's been done just to panic us. I don't know why they don't have the sense to realise you don't want to sell this.
Now, Nick, you're obviously a big proponent of net zero.
Yes.
Are you happy about this then?
I'm thrilled. Ed Miliband's my guy. I've always said, more net zero, 2030, let's ruin Britain. What's the slogan? It's not that, is it? I don't get it. It's absurd. Anything Ed Miliband does is bad. And they do say they're going to plant trees and have solar farms, but your claim there is they're going to cut down the trees to just have more solar farms.
Well, you can
sounds like a
the trees first, and then when they get too tall, you have to chop them down because the solar farms, they're not on the floor, are they? They are.
You know, you could do some solar farms somewhere and then some trees somewhere else.
Don't scan.
Just throwing that out there.
They don't scan at all.
So what do you think about this, Nick? Food security, obviously an issue.
Food security? I've got no idea about food security, Josh.
I just read it. I just saw the words. I thought
these aren't issues I care about. I'm pro-tree. I will say that. I'm from the country. I'm pro-countryside. I'm against Ed Miliband. Those are my guiding principles.
Solar powers? What's solar powers?
Pro, but let's not get carried away. Because it's not going to do much. It's got to be nuclear first, right? And then wind and solar and everything is like way in the corner. It's more like a fun project to give Ed Miliband. It's like colouring in the corner. But it's not... When he starts to actually affect stuff, that's when I worry.
Yeah, and I'm pro-solar, like, the science of it is brill, all that photovoltaic stuff. But put it on buildings and houses and roofs. Do all that.
Use it in a country that's got sun?
Apparently, one thing I have heard is that David Miliband is now pro-fracking. He's just, like, the most... he just... That's not true, by the way. That is funny, because you remember how he got stabbed in the front?
When David Miliband eats a bacon sandwich, it's straight in, don't even touch the sides. Yeah. Does it so well.
You got Marianne Faithfull.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of which... that was a bizarre segue. I wasn't actually listening to what you're saying, which is why I brought that up, but now I realise I put those two together. Sorry about that. But you a fan of Marianne Faithfull?
Yeah, look, I mean, I like all of the stories from, like, when rock was actually rock, when music was... Yeah. Back then, when these musicians were doing rebellious stuff, it was rebellious. If you went into a hotel and threw a TV out of a window, it meant something because it was a cathode ray tube on it. Now, these days, they're so light, they're thin, it'd float down like a leaf. So that was when music was proper music.
I see. OK, that's an interesting take on her death.
Well, celebrating her life.
Well, yeah, she embodied it. What I think Steve's saying is, as it says there, she embodied the spirit of the swinging 60s, which at the time seemed cool and rebellious. In hindsight, the 60s was a mistake, but at the time, at least it was rebellious at the time and artistically interesting.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully we had the ability to record music and it still sound good. It's not like the 1930s music where you've just got just the middle. Yep. Thankfully they had the tech, and the Stones are better than the Beatles as well. I'm throwing that.
Oh wow, really going controversial today. For Ofcom reasons, I have to say the Beatles. Now, this other one here, the big story: £1 in every £15 spent on benefits is either fraud or a mistake. That's
that sounds bad, doesn't it? But when you read into it, it's actually much worse. It's nearly 10 billion, Josh, of taxpayer money was paid out for bogus or erroneous claims.
That's half a black hole.
24. That's almost half of a single economic black hole that we've been left by the incompetent Tories. Yeah. Oh, it's 6.7% of the total benefits bill, which is already massive, because we're basically a benefit system with a country attached. We're a failing health system and a failing benefits system, and then there's, like, some net zero in the corner. That's the country now.
But this could mean you could take £8 billion to fund a force to try and stop fraud and mistakes, make a £2 billion saving, and it would be worth it.
And then you could heat old people.
For $2 billion,
yeah, that pretty much fits it all in there. Yeah, it's ridiculous that this level of wastage is happening. Let alone, we know that there are some scammers I know them, they're mates of mine. Yeah. Come on, guys, you know you're scamming a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, no, Lewis is still on benefits, even though anyone can see he's on national TV.
Yeah, but he talks about his health issues quite a lot.
That's
so
true.
He's sort of...
Yeah, so we've got more benefits scam stories later because there's so many of them now.
It's great, it's great. Let's go on to The Guardian then, Nick. Watchdog, this is a very depressing story.
Oh, yeah, it is, actually. It's Watchdog. Women face an epidemic of violence, and this refers to sex crimes hitting a record high. It's pretty shocking stuff. I mean, something like 6.8% of cases are actually result in the suspect being charged or summoned. So this is just about, only 1 in 6 people report sex offenders. And obviously we saw it in the grooming gangs, people are afraid to report them, and in other cases. So, yeah, basically women are being let down by the authorities. I think that was the Express that actually said that, but obviously they're being let down. And a lot of this immigration hasn't helped, if we're honest, as well. Women feel harassed on the street. And the only it seems to me the only cases that actually get anywhere are if it's a famous footballer. That's how it seems to me. Whereas all the cases, there also is a strange class element. Like, we're in this era of Me Too, where everyone's talking about, you know, how treating women respectfully and so on. Meanwhile, rape is just completely running amok, and people say it's been effectively legalised.
Well, it's 20% of all crime. That's insane, first of all. Then it's, as you said, six times higher in terms of the unreported. So actually, we're talking about over 1 million of these incidents. Yeah. And of rape, only 2.7% actually go to court. So it's essentially decriminalised.
The one thing to try and bring some light to this could be that the stat about 1 in 6 is an old stat, back when the numbers were lower. So we've seen an increase in numbers. And whenever you see an increase, you've got to ask the question, is it that more people are committing this crime, or is it being reported more? So after years of saying these are not cases that are reported, people should go to the police, maybe part of this, at the very least, is an increase in reporting. We don't know yet. That 1 in 6 stat has not been updated. It's like the legacy stat that people always say about this. Let's hope that some of this is reporting, that then the police are involved. That, you know, maybe I'm...
Yeah, but the figures that have been reported are the amount that actually go on to be solved and then go to trial. So it seems mentally there's 2 issues here. You've got prevention and you've got punishment, and both seem to be massively failing the women of this country.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just, we can't be funny about it, but it gets me upset and angry. And every time you see it, and Labour have come in and said, we're going to reduce it by half, and it's going up.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you can be slightly funny about that. Imagine picking half. Imagine going into government thinking there is a correct amount of sex crime.
That is actually, that's kind of messed up. Let's go on to the Daily Mail then. Nick. Oh, no, sorry, Steve.
They go with, now prove your growth agenda isn't all hot air. I imagine that's the tone they go with. Keir Starmer was under pressure last night. Get serious about growth and sign off 2 North Sea oil fields controversially blocked by the courts. If you are... They need to pick a side, don't they? The Labour at the moment, they have the Ed Miliband versus Rachel Reeves. It's either we all love the trees and the newts and all the farmland, or can we kill some newts to build a thing? Just some newts. Like, even in yesterday's speech, she was saying about how much money, 100 million, had been spent on that tunnel for bats. She wants to just strangle those bats. But pick a side, either you love to build, which is, you know, build is very much like drill, you've got to pick one, or be all, you know, all about the bats.
Yeah, I mean, Nick, part of me suspects that the papers are pushing this agenda just so they can do puns. Like last night, it was all about the turbulence of the new Heathrow...
All right, I bet they stopped the turbulence jokes today, didn't they?
And now it's hot air.
Hot air, yeah. I mean, it's not their best, but it's... of course, I'm inherently in favour of this because it's the kind of thing people on my side agree with, so I'm just blindly agreeing with it. I mean, drill, baby, drill, is something I've heard Trump say a lot, so obviously I just blindly follow that. Also... Rosebank and Jackdaw, the projects are called, and they just sound inherently cool. Yeah. And they want Miliband to give the green light to them. I say absolutely give the green light to Jackdaw without really knowing what it is. Yeah.
Some of the smartest cormorants.
All right, well, let's have some more front pages. We have the Eye. Treat patients at home to prevent bed-blocking streeting, tells health bosses. The Express, we need people to believe in Brexit. And the Daily Star, Armageddon out of here. So, Nick, this actually sounds like it makes sense.
Well, it's treat patients at home to prevent NHS hospital bed blocking streeting, tells health bosses. So you've heard of work from home. This is now treat from home. So it's the new way to... Because, you know, the NHS isn't really working, so if you could just do it at home. But, yeah, the idea is you'll cut the key metrics like emergency hospital admissions for over 65s. Again, it's Lewis. Delays to being discharged and the number of over 65s admitted to care homes. So... You know, it's this thing I've noted before. Streeting and in general Labour have a little bit more leeway with the public, or historically they have, as Labour, to try and reform the NHS. Because as soon as Farage does it, they just say he's evil, he wants us all to have the American system and poor people should be dying on the streets. Whereas Streeting is actually the only person who's been, you know, he seems to have been serious about actually tackling it because he can electorally get away with it, perhaps.
Isn't there you say it makes sense, isn't there a slight problem about being treated at home? Certainly where I live, that's not where the doctors are. And
well,
that might be what I need.
This is the issue and I listened to a documentary about this, which basically, what doctors are saying, the reason why there's so few beds is because essentially a lot of old people who are actually OK to be sent home, there isn't either space for them in the home or the ability to care for them properly. So the real issue isn't about the NHS as such, it's about the social care that hasn't been integrated and hasn't been invested in enough over the last 10, 15 years. So that's what they're really talking about. That's where the money needs to be put, and that will then take elderly people out of these beds and back into their homes to then have the care.
I still don't trust this story in the same way that when we got the stories about seeing your GP via a video call, I thought, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. I could definitely do that, so it would free up time for old people to be able to go in and see them face to face. But the old people still have to try and do Skype calls or whatever. So yes, this will make sense for some cases. Meanwhile, they'll also be turfing other people home when they shouldn't do.
Yeah, no, fair enough. All right, well, look, what's the Daily Express going with then? Brexit, is it going to happen?
We need people who believe in Brexit, says Nigel Farage. The whole story is basically saying that if he becomes Prime Minister, he'll be in favour of doing Brexit. How is this news? If you were a betting person...
Could you tell us, first of all, can you just tell our audience just a bit of background? What is Brexit?
Brexit. So we used to be part of the... I think it was 1975. There was a vote saying that we should be part of the European project. And things got out of hand, as they were
Things escalated quickly.
Yeah, to do an anchorman. So Brexit, it was a vote in 2016. Didn't really get mentioned a lot. And after then, the way that it worked out, Boris Johnson might not have delivered what Nigel Farage wants. He says he'll now deliver what Nigel Farage wants.
So we've not had Brexit yet?
Yeah, it depends who you
We're
ask.
still in the EU.
It's never really been tried.
Yeah.
Like socialism. There is something to be said for that. I mean, because he's saying it's not been... Farage is saying it's not been delivered by people who actually believe in it. I think that's pretty clear. Boris didn't believe in anything, and many of the others were active Remainers. So we were promised this great thing, connecting with the rest of the world. All we got was the worst people from the rest of the world, plus none of the benefits of the EU. So even I'm going, what was this all about?
It's good news, because the whole thing could be moot, because we're all going to die in a couple of years then, Nick.
I like that link. The star, yes. Armageddon out of here. An 100-metre wide asteroid could... keyword, hit Britain at precisely... so it's could, but then they know the time. It's precisely 5:25 a.m. on December 22nd, 2032. So 2 years after Ed Miliband's destroyed the country with net zero, this meteor will just finish the job, essentially. It's not great for someone like me who struggles with anxiety to read that. But it's a long way off, and it's the star.
It's not even the long way off that makes it feel better. Like, they've done the maths on these things, and they all miss. For, like, the next 100 years, we know that nothing's going to actually impact. They've done it. Right. And the could... When it gets nearer to the date, they'll say there's a meteor that's coming within 3 million miles, and they'll say, astronomically, that's really close. But it's not, is it?
I see.
It's 3 million miles.
And there is also a question, what is worse, a meteor destroying the Earth or Keir Starmer's government?
Well, so we're going to find out. We've got one. Luckily, we have our options open. And look, there's a picture of Bruce Willis there on the cover. I should point out that Bruce Willis is not a real astronaut. Who will lead the mission to...
Great movie.
Great guy. Front pages, tick, but do not go anywhere. You do not want to miss what we've got lined up for you in the next section. What might actually get illegal migrants arrested? And why is there no point in sucking up to grandma anymore? Find out in 2.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
An absolute monster. It took Chloe and Sean Ing 90 minutes to reel in this gigantic 8-foot-long monster fish from Chigborough Fisheries in Essex. And upon weighing this enormous marine beast, it was found to have been 7 pounds heavier than the existing British record, a 143-pound catfish caught also in Essex. But as I understand it, you actually went for a Chinese meal when fate struck. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So I was fishing an area of Chigborough where you have to fish at a fair distance. So I cast my rods out And then we ordered a Chinese. And yeah, so I got the bite at about 10 to 8 at night. And then about 20 minutes into it, my phone started ringing, the Chinese guys at the gate with my delivery. So I had to send a couple of guys off to go and get it. And then, yeah, the fight, obviously, you can't just stop the fight to go and get your Chinese. So, yeah, the fight went on, yeah, for about an hour and a half in total. There's no net in the world that's big enough for this fish. So we had to send out, first of all, I sent out a mate, Alex. He went out there to go and basically use what we call a sling. So that's a safe apparatus that we use to take the fish out of the water. He then went and he turned around and he was like, we're going to need another sling. So then we sent out another friend with a sling, and these slings are 4 foot long each. So then we had the catfish wrapped up in 2 slings, and it was still slightly longer than that. And then we got to a point where we was like, now we've got to try and get it out of the water to photo, to weigh it, because obviously we knew then that it was possibly going to be a UK record.
GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get straight into Friday's Daily Mail, Steve, where Trump might be reading too much into an air collision because it involved a Black Hawk.
Trump blames DEI for American Airlines crash that killed 67. So there's a terrible plane crash, in case you didn't know. A plane perfectly on the correct approach to an airport, lights on, even though it's at night, so visible. And a helicopter on a training exercise crashed into it. Many things have gone wrong for that to happen. But President Trump says he blames diversity and DEI initiatives. Now, I mean, like, maybe. He certainly quotes a thing where some report said that it was far too white. But what's his evidence for this? And it turns out Trump's evidence is, here's the exact quote I read down here, that he had pretty good ideas about what happened. That's not evidence, is it? That's just him making the claim. So, look, the idea of a culture where you think a place can be too white is bad, but I think we jump into conclusions to know definitely right off the bat that was the cause here.
Well, look, we don't know what he knows, Nick.
True.
And I'm a fan of what some of the things he's been pushing through recently, but this doesn't look great to me in terms of, it seems like he's blaming ethnicity. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, I'm amazed that you now love Trump. And who saw that coming? But, yeah, obviously it's a tragic incident. Whether this is DEI, as you say, hard to ascertain. I mean, J.D. Vance is saying it is, in a sense. He's saying if you don't have the best standards when you're hiring, it puts stresses on people who are already there. Pete Hegseth is talking about it. Trump is saying it. Whether it is responsible for this or not, I think we can all agree it's bad and dangerous if you have people in positions like this and they're not the most qualified. That's clearly completely insane, right? Yeah. It's the kind of thing Lionel Shriver satirised in her book Mania. And one thing a lot of people have pointed out is that Trump's response was so much better than Biden's because there was a response. They were available to deal with it, even though it was like late at night. And so I think it's a very good start for the Trump administration, although it's a tragic event, obviously.
There was one nice thing from the story, though. This talks about what the training exercise was. The Black Hawk was on annual retraining night flights on a standard corridor for continuity of government missions, which is how the government carries on if
yeah, we've all seen Independence Day, we know.
But he didn't know what continuity of...
Trump hasn't seen Independence Day.
So he said, I don't know what that refers to, but they were practising. They do that. They call it practising. Even I just love that idea that he's trying to go like, no, I think in the army they call practising, actually, I think you find.
He doesn't know all the lingo, but he gets the job done.
Exactly.
He's a maverick who gets the job done at the end of the day.
Yeah. He's been heavily criticised for this. It could be nothing to do with ethnicity, by the way, because DEI involves also hiring people for... what he's saying here, they should have seen where they were going, and it implies to me that there might have been someone maybe hired who is visually impaired.
Right.
Could have hired... They could have a blind pilot or something.
The Labrador should have seen the plane. What is wrong with these situations?
It's definitely... I would argue it's not a massively good look. But, of course, unless he actually reveals some kind of evidence.
Yeah. Oh, and the flip side is Pete Buttigieg said during the Biden administration there was 0 of these accidents. Trump comes in, fires some people important in the way that it runs, and then a couple of days later they have...
That was... First of all, they point out in the article that he's gay. I don't know what that's got to do with anything.
DEI, man.
Yeah, but what they said, we put safety first, we grew air traffic control, and we had 0 commercial out of millions of flights. And you go, well, wait a minute. You can't then have one and go, well, look at what a great job we're doing.
But he's saying that during our time.
No, but he's still in charge.
No, Pete Buttigieg can't be. He's a Democrat guy.
No, he's the first openly gay Secretary of Transportation. OK, so...
he's Democrat.
Sorry, he was in charge. But the point is... All right, OK.
To be fair,
Steve, you just ruined it.
If you can't have gay people on a plane, that is going to change the personnel quite a lot of the...
Also, you could argue that it's been too quick to actually make any changes on the ground, so to speak.
Yeah.
OK.
But not on the ground.
I'm trying to save face desperately there. OK, on to The Guardian, Nick, where asylum seekers could face jail time. Is it because they've been posting about themselves?
Good call. No, it's other stuff, Josh. It's asylum seekers...
By the way, I thank you for that laugh. That was from you.
That's the first genuine laugh. It was
3 years.
Yeah,
and that chuckle means the world.
Yeah, you earned it, Josh, in the end.
Thank you.
You just got to keep believing.
Actually, Cresta wrote that, Luke.
But you delivered it, Josh. So that's the key. Asylum seekers who refuse rescue in Channel may face 5-year jail terms. And so it's people seeking asylum on small boats who refuse to be rescued, which is a strange sentence, by the French authorities, could receive sentences of up to 5 years under a new law meant to disrupt irregular channel crossings. And there's quite a funny line here that the refugee groups have criticised this, saying they'd essentially criminalise legitimate asylum seekers, and that the bill maintains some of the draconian powers introduced by the last Conservative government, the draconian powers that allowed just endless boats and endless legal and illegal people to just flood into the country. The Boris wave, the most we've ever had in the country, that was draconian. I, of course, say we need to be more draconian. If you had no boats allowed, if you had just a block, let's just stop all immigration, all asylum for just a while, then everything would be illegal, then it would be just very simple. That's my...
Yeah. What do you think about that? I mean, bills is one thing, actually acting on it is another. It seems to be centred around this idea that if they reject help from the French, because if they accept help from the French, they would obviously be taken back to France. So if they reject it, then they're going to prison instead.
Well, all of these things, good ideas, all of these things won't do much to help. Okay. I think that's the quick way of saying it.
So you're calling for Rwanda?
No, not at all. In fact, don't get me started on Rwanda. Everyone's saying that Germany is now copying our thing. They're not. They're just doing the processing in Rwanda. If you get approved as an asylum seeker, you go back to Germany. That wasn't our plan.
Sounds like they're copying.
But this, I think you could easily sell this to your average audience member. If you were in the sea and you had a choice by being saved by a French person, would you say no? I think that's a lot of people would be like, I'm being saved by the French.
Yeah.
Anyone on a peddler
would be an issue. You're being saved by the French, and you say something, but your French isn't good enough, and they're correcting you, but you're in the sea, and they're going, oh, I think you'll find it's pronounced, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They would do that.
You'd rather face the rest.
There's a very frustrating comment here at the end from someone from the advocacy of... Associate Director of Advocacy at the Freedom from Torture, and basically says that it would be better directed towards stopping the torture that pushes people from their homes in the first place, in terms of where... Well, if you want to stop what's going on in some of these countries, that means getting involved in a war.
Yeah, overthrowing regimes.
That's essentially what they're saying. So which one do you want it? Do you want people to go into Syria like we could have and prevented 500,000 deaths when that